Cool. Okay. Trying to think of topics that you probably haven't done before. You've talked about analog gear, right? Have you talked about interning? How to act as an intern? Cool. That's great. Cool. Yeah, I saw that you got the case like engraved or whatever. So they're not the pros with the little earbud things? That's what isn't that what Tizio said when he did his seminar with you? He said it makes things sound kind of thin and weak.
Yo, what up, everybody? Hello, hello, hello. Oh, wait, hold on. I'm missing something. Now I have space in the background. All right. I'll listen to that song. Hello, Obscure Asian. Hello, May the Pirate. Hey, May the Pirate, I heard your song on Feedback Friday with someone else that you met on the stream. I heard that song. It's actually really good. What up, Inkrot? What up, everybody? Welcome to the stream. Hello, hello, hello. What up, what up? Let me pull up. Give me a second. Stream manager, okay. I'm on the stream manager. Wait, okay. Hello, hello, hello. I am literally just trying to get all this shit straightened out. Crazy. All right. Move this down here. Eventually. This is just really hectic. Okay. What up, everybody? Welcome to the Mixing Music Podcast. Well, it's gonna start soon. Lou got the vid. We'll talk about that. Lou got COVID. That's why he's not here today, but we do have another special guest. we were planning on going to Urko's place and talk to him about how he mixed Donda, but Lou was sick, and luckily I tested negative, so I'm all good. But because of that, Lou is unable to join us for the podcast, and we canceled the Urko thing. We're rescheduling it, so hopefully we can go back to our next guest next week. But yeah, that's where we're at right now. So welcome back to the Mixing Music Podcast. Thank you for everybody that's here with us today. I'm gonna swap over and can you unmute yourself? Ask to unmute. Hello there.
Hello.
Who the hell are you?
It's me, Braden, the host of the exclusive content for the Mixing Music Podcast. So subscribe and you'll get to know me better.
Boo! No, I'm just kidding. Not teasing. Yeah, we're gonna do an episode together with Braden and I. We're gonna hang out. As Lou is sick and recovering, he called me yesterday. I don't know if this is too private. He called me last night, like midnight, or no, it was like 11 p.m. And I picked up, and he's like, "Bro, I just need to hear your voice." And I was like, "What do you mean?" Turns out he had just woken up from a fever dream where like me and my family and Lou and somebody else was in the car. We all just crashed and like some of us died. And he was just like, I couldn't tell if it was a dream or not. So I just wanted to check in with you, make sure you're okay. I'm like, yeah, the kids are asleep. We're fine. No worries. So he is going through it right now, having crazy fever dreams. So wish him luck. Wish him get better. Oh, your mic audio seems to be dipping in and out. It should be better. Also, Inkra, for some reason it says you're watching without audio. I've never seen that before. I don't know. You're obviously responding to my question, so you're hearing it. But like, there's a little icon next to your thing that says watching without audio. So, breaking all the rules. I don't know. Anyway, welcome to this live stream. Hope you all are having chaotic creative days. I don't know what to say about that. We just had, Braden and I had like a pretty long philosophical discussion about the fourth wall of audio realization. Oh, we could talk about that. We could talk about the Dunning-Kruger effect and hold on. Also, we might need to talk about the Music Modernization Act. Let me look up a few things for research, and then I might actually talk about some, and then where I'm gonna try to. I did actually some research on the Music Modernization Act passed in 2018 and how that affects songwriters and rights holders today. About sound exchange, which is interesting. We'll talk about that. Is a cognitive bias with the little. Okay, hold on. Wait a second. We're gonna talk about. Hold on. What did I say? What did I say before? There's like 4 levels that they talk about within cognitive bias. There's the unaware. This is before. We're not recording anything yet. I'm just trying to think of the topics that we're gonna record. So there's. I talked about this in a past episode, but now I've totally forgotten about it. Unaware and unable to do.
It's a bass trap, Noah, by the way. I typed in the chat, but that is a bass trap. To be honest, it's not good though.
Competence, yeah. 4 stages of competence, also known as the 4 stages of learning, is a model based on the premises that before a learning experience begins, learners are unaware of what or how much they know, unconscious incompetence as they learn. Okay, sweet. Learners how to. Okay. This is interesting. Okay, here it is. The 4 stages of competence. What is this from? Who built the 4 stages? Competence. competence. Who built the 4 stages of competence? We're going Wikipedia. Management trainer Martin M. Broadwell. Ooh. In February, the 4 levels of teaching. The 4 stages suggest that our individuals. Okay, so here it is. Okay, I think that this is good. I'm gonna have some like good. Let's talk about cognitive bias and the 4 stages of competence, which I think will relate into like the 4 stages of the 4 walls that we were talking about, but in a more like realistic sense. And I want this in this one. I'm probably going to be doing most of the talking, but I want you to like stop me and ask me questions to make it more in depth. Is that cool, Braden?
Absolutely. That is totally cool with me.
Okay, it's a bass trap. Oh, hold on. I've never seen that symbol before. Oh yeah, me neither. Is that a bass trap or a Fender basement cabinet in the back of the Braden's room? It's a bass trap. Prime acoustic full trap, really expensive and really not worth it.
It doesn't do anything. Nothing.
It's just cute.
I can't literally. I type in the chat. Literally, the only reason it's there is because I can't get anyone to buy it. Like, it doesn't do anything to my room. When I do my SonarWorks readings and treatment readings, it does not affect anything. So
interesting.
But Carl and Russell do.
I'm wondering if that's because it's so low as well. Like, have you ever tried putting it on a box and doing it when it's at ear level?
That's the problem. That corner is so tiny. I can't get it up on anything. It barely fits in that corner. Like, it's halfway out to the wall.
It literally just looks.
Yeah, and
that's funny.
I have a chair I could try setting it on, but I mean, I'm moving in a couple months, so I'm not I'm not super worried about it.
Oh, did you figure out a spot already?
No, but my wife and her mom are going down to Texas the first week in June to go find a place for us.
Good, cool. First week of June, and then that's the same week that we're going to NAMM together.
Yep. Yeah, baby.
All right, y'all. This is going to be a really fun episode. Ooh, I can already feel this one. This is going to be really fun. I'm like amped up on caffeine, so like I just had lunch, which was waffles. My wife loves to make like waffles and pancakes for lunch and dinner, like breakfast for dinner type things, but they're not your casual waffles and lunch. They're packed with like, it is 60% vegetables. Wow. So it's not just like flour, water. It is also shredded broccoli and like, or not broccoli, shredded spinach oftentimes, and shredded carrots. And so they come out like green or orange and different, like, so it's mostly like vegetables. So it's like meatloaf, but it's like waffle loaf. Maybe that's what we'll call it from now on. It's like waffle pancake loaf.
And does it just taste like a normal waffle?
It tastes like, yeah, it tastes like regular waffle pancakes, but with way more nutrients.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So it's really fun. The kids love it. I love it. Syrup is just so damn good. Honey's so good. You know what I do with my pancakes? I put peanut butter on them. Instead of butter, I do peanut butter and then do like honey or syrup on top of the peanut butter.
Nice.
It makes them extra filling. All right. This is going to be a fun episode about the Dunning-Kruger effect. Are you ready?
Yes. I'm going to sound like an idiot.
No. It's okay. I want you to ask.
Tell me what the like, Dunning-Kruger effect is before we start.
Exactly. I will. Okay. But first off, when we do this, I don't want you to say anything like, I feel like an idiot, or don't degrade yourself. At no point should you put me in a pedestal and degrade yourself. I want you to act as if you're a listener and you're just participating.
You got it.
Is that cool?
Yep. Let me open Pro Tools real quick so I can record. Because
I think that this is going to be a super interesting one. Okay. I'm going to start. Hold on. Let me make sure that Pro Tools is recording.
Give me 1 second.
Test.
Interface. Yep.
Oh, what the heck?
Yep.
You like my background, everybody? All right. Y'all ready for this? This is going to be a good one. Tell me when you're ready.
I am ready in 3, 2, 1. I'm ready.
I'm not. Okay, it's rolling. Okay, mine's rolling.
Cool.
This is gonna be so much fun. I'm genuinely excited for this episode. This is gonna be a fun one. All right, I'm recording this.
Recording in progress.
Recording in progress. Okay, ready?
Yep.
All right. Let's sync up. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Hello and welcome back to the Mix of Music podcast. I am your host, DK. Fortunately, Lou is not with me here today because he got down and got boogieing with a case of the coronavirus, and unfortunately, he's just out of commission. Please DM him, spam him with DMs, and say, please feel better, at least 20 messages in a row. Actually, please do not do that. That was a joke. I don't want like 1,000 messages. He already doesn't respond to half of them without the 1,000 extra messages. I tease it. Yeah, he's please wish him better. Pray for him if you want to. I don't know. Whatever. No voodoo magic, please. On. Yeah, just wish him better. But he'll be back soon. It doesn't seem like it's a horrible case, but he's out. Was having fever dreams, and we were talking about that before the stream. Because right now we're live. We're live right now. I am live with the wonderful Braden Flint from Flint Mastering. What up, Braden?
Heyo, what up? Super stoked to be here.
What up? So if you didn't know already, Braden is in charge and is the host of the exclusive episodes of the Mix of Music podcast. I join him quite often. Well, I know it's my show, but what we do is that every Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. Eastern time, we release an episode of the podcast, right? And now on Wednesdays and Thursdays, we also release an episode of it's only technical information. It's not philosophy and business and things that I like to talk about often. It's only relevant technical information about producing, mixing, songwriting, whatever it is, mostly producing, mixing, mastering. And we take clips from other Grammy-winning or award-winning professionals, and we kind of expand on those topics. You can find access to those episodes at mixingmusicpodcast.com/exclusive. Braden takes the lead on that and does all the editing and finds the clips. I give some insight and talk about that, expand on the ideas. Really worth going into. It's only $4 a month or $40 a year, and it unlocks 3 times the amount of episodes that you get. So if you're a big fan of the podcast and can't get enough, then these, or you really want just technical information, then that's what you want to do. So Braden, thanks again for joining us and for being in charge of editing those episodes. And we have a bunch of subscribers already. Thank you to everybody that's new, that's subscribed. Maybe we'll start like thanking people by name when they subscribe. But yes, today's a very, very interesting episode. This is something that, if you didn't know already, I'm a freaking nerd. And one of the things that I'm really nerdy about is psychology and the mind and how to manage it. I don't know. The curiosities of the mind. And today is something that I think is very important, something that we all struggle with. Maybe this goes into a bit of imposter syndrome, but as well as helping you assess what part of the learning journey you're on. So like how learned you are, how competent you are at mixing or producing or whatever it is you're assessing with yourself. And I want to foreshadow all of this, or preface all of this with, I am not a psychologist. I am not part of any sort of American psychology organization. This is one dude that has watched some videos, read some books, and has personal opinions, and you should take them as personal opinions, and you are allowed to not agree with me, although it's hard to disagree with when I'm like reading off of like Wikipedia. So like that being said, how you interpret what I'm about to say is up to you, and there's many interpretations of this and what I mean, but I would love to go down a direction of thought that I hope will help you assess yourself and where you're at, and will help you make more money and do better at your work and figuring out what steps you need to take to become to improve your skill and your craft. So that's all I wanted to say. All right, so today's topic is about the 4 levels of competence, cognitive bias, the Dunning-Kruger effect. Now, I love the Dunning-Kruger effect, and it is a form of cognitive bias created and discovered by Dunning and Kruger, 2 psychologists, and it's one of my favorites because first off, Dunning-Kruger effect is the DK effect. Hello. And it's something that I struggle a lot with. A lot of people, you see this all the time. So I'm going to read a little bit of the Dunning-Kruger effect as far as like the definition on Wikipedia and how this relates to audio and with us. So I'm going to read this. The Dunning-Kruger effect is a cognitive bias whereby people with the low ability at task overestimate their ability. So I'm going to read that again. The Dunning-Kruger effect is a cognitive bias where people with a low ability at a task overestimate their ability. That means people that suck at things think that they're above average. Okay, so it's usually measured, the Dunning-Kruger effect is usually measured by comparing self-assessment with objective performance. They did this is like the initial study was published in 1999 by David Dunning and Justin Kruger. It focuses on logical reasoning, grammar, social skills. Okay, here it is. This is so funny. Here's the story, and this is where I'm not reading the Wikipedia. This is a story that I'm recalling from YouTube videos that I watched about this. I really think that you should watch some YouTube videos. I've talked about this on previous episodes, but I'm going to bring it back up because this is important. All right, so the story goes that one of the studies that they did is they asked a group of professional comedians to come in, and they had 10 jokes lined up on a wall. And they asked each of the professional comedians to rank all 10 of these jokes from not funny to funniest. Okay? Then they did the same thing with people off the street, randoms. And they asked everybody to put themselves to rank all the jokes from not funny to most funny. And what they did is then, this is the actual research part. They maybe tricked him into thinking that was the research part. But the actual research part was they asked them, how good do you think you are at ranking funny jokes? Like, how good do you think you are at figuring out what's funny? The professional comedians ranked themselves on average in the lower 30th percentile. They all thought that they were below average at picking good, funny jokes. Then the random people off the street, on average, rated themselves at around the 70th percentile, which is statistically, mathematically impossible. You cannot have an average of over 50%. It is 50%, or should be around 50%. So it's really interesting, right? So it is the idea that people that are not good at things tend to think that they are. And the reason why cognitive bias exists is a way for the mind to protect itself and to not have any sort of existential crisis and to realize, oh shit, I suck at a lot of different things, and then your mind explodes. So it's a form of protecting itself. So there's a pragmatic reason why the mind creates cognitive bias. We see this all the time, especially, I'm not going to talk about politics and our positions on different things, but we see this all the time. Some political person on the news said something, and all of a sudden, everybody on Twitter thinks that they're experts after doing 30 seconds of research on a topic. We saw this most often where people off the street, Joe Schmoes off the street, reading some Wikipedia articles, claim and think that they have some sort of authority on how vaccines work and how this specific vaccine works and whether or not it's useful or not, or masks. And they have not done the clinical studies, nor have they, so people have been spending decades on this thing versus not. And I'm sure that there are some professionals that are reliable, good sources that can argue one side or the other. The point of this is not whether or not one side is right or the other. The point of the cognitive bias, the Dunning-Kruger effect, is people think that they are experts from not doing any work and having such a low ability that they don't really understand how bad that they are. Okay, this goes directly into, I right now I'm just ranting, and this goes directly into the 4 stages of competence. All right, the 4 stages of competence is a management training style by a management trainer, Martin N. Broadwell, described the model as the 4 levels of teaching in February 1969. So this has been around for a while. Paul R. Curtis and Philip W. Warren mentioned the model in their 1973 book, The Dynamics of Life Skills Coaching. So it's been used in trainings. It's been a while. It's been around since the late 1969, but it's still something to think about. It's not like any sort of based off any sort of psychology, but I find a lot of correlation between the Dunning-Kruger effect and the 4 stages of competence. And we're going to relate this to you as an engineer, as a producer, because I think this has a lot to do, again, for the sake of like self-assessment and figuring out where you're at, and hopefully as motivation, maybe as confidence boosting for you to take the next few steps. Like, I want you to take something away from this and recognize that you have a lot more potential. I'm not trying to bring you down. I'm not trying to say you suck and you don't realize it. I'm trying to tell you the exact opposite. All right, so we find that people that are actually good at things tend to rate themselves at the lower level. So it's there's an actual bar graph. Sorry, this is really interesting. I'm sorry, Braden. I'm just like ranting. First off, any opinions on this so far? What do you think?
I mean, at first when you said like people that think they're really good at stuff are typically not good, that checks out.
I mean, you think so, right? That's like common sense.
Yeah. There's a lot of people I've met that are like that, and typically the people that are more, I don't necessarily think like you have to be like Mr. Shy Guy, Mr. Super Humble, like, oh, I'm not good at anything, like I have no confidence. I don't think that those people are like the best at what they do, but like, we've all met people that think that they're better than they are, and then we've also met people who are really good at what they do and they're confident because they know they're good at what they do. But if you ask them, like in the study that DK talked about, they'll rate themselves lower. They'll be like, oh, my mixes could always be better. My masters could be better. Oh, dude, I love what this guy did. He does this so much better than I do. You should talk to him, or stuff like that. So I also find it very, very fascinating. And it's interesting that there's like a full on, I didn't even know that until today. I didn't know that there was like full on studies done on it. So that's cool. But
yeah, so here's the thing. This is where I hope people start to feel confident. If you've been suffering with imposter syndrome, or that you're not good enough, and you recognize and you're fully aware that there are way better people than you, then congratulations, you're probably competent, and you're probably good enough to now not have to rank yourself in the bottom half. You're at least average. And this is really, really important. Chase Style, in his episode of the podcast, we talked about how it's okay to like your own work. And it's okay. You should get to the point. I posted something on Instagram as a story the other day, and I genuinely feel this. I posted on my Instagram story, and you can check it out, at DK Mixes. But on my Instagram story, I posted that I put a picture of me, and then in the story I said, I'm freaking good at what I do. I'm freaking good at what I do, period. I hope everybody else can feel the same way about their craft. It doesn't matter whether I'm good at what I do. I think it matters a lot that I think I'm good at what I do. And to be fair, that's not natural for me. That's not natural for anybody. Like, everybody that's doing something for a while and understands how much better other people are, you're going to become self-aware and self-conscious and be like, I don't think I'm good enough. That's normal. So if your brain is telling you that, shut the fuck up, and it's okay. You're fine. You're fine. Like, you're good. The worst thing is, like, I've been doing this for 3 years, and I think I'm the best. No, you shut up, because you're probably not the best. You've only been doing this for 3 years. There are other people in the field that have been doing this for decades and still don't claim any sort of mastery, okay? Like, if Tizio says, I don't think that I'm I don't think I'm the authority to teach mixing, then you should shut up, Mr. 2 years of producing and thinking that you're the best in the world. So I think it does go in and to those that say that I'm the best in the world, the best artist, the best producer, the best mixer, and I've only been doing this for 2 years, or like 3 months, even worse, then I am calling you out, and this should make you feel really self-conscious. But if you're at the point where, like, I'm really feeling inconfident and self-conscious, then don't. I think that's the more serious part of this. Okay, we're going to talk about the 4 levels of competence. I'm going to read this a little bit, and then I'm going to talk about the 4 levels. Okay, and I'm kind of done talking about cognitive bias, and we're going to kind of go back and forth between the two. But this is where we're at. So this is more for like management training with business and figuring out where you are with skills, with like skills of that you charge for. So for example, mixing or producing, right? Okay. The 4 stages of competence, also known as the 4 stages of learning, is a model based on a premise that before a learning experience begins, learners are unaware of what or how much they know. Unconscious incompetence. We'll talk about that. And as they learn, they move through 4 psychological states until they reach a stage of unconscious competence. By understanding this models, trainers can better identify learning needs and develop learning objectives based on where their target audience is in the 4 stages related to a given topic. So you should be able to come up with some sort of self-assessment to figure out where you are, but this is mostly used for teachers teaching their students and like how to assess their students in order to better teach them and figure out where they're at. Okay, number 1, the first level is unconscious incompetence. So in unconscious incompetence, the learner isn't aware that a skill or knowledge gap exists. So this is everybody in the Dunning-Kruger effect, of the cognitive bias, the Dunning-Kruger effect. They have so little knowledge about the thing that they don't realize that they don't know anything. So as you noticed, one of the things that I said before we started the podcast, and this is also, I'm not even going to get into this is a whole side tangent thing. This is also a sign of intelligence. People with more intelligence or higher IQ recognize that they don't know shit. So if you think that you have an high IQ, or if you tell people that you do, that's technically a sign of lower intelligence. I'm not going to go into that. And narcissism, but we're not going to go into that.
Remember,
don't
this
ever
is a
study
mixing
intelligence.
music podcast.
Don't ever study intelligence. It's not worth it. It's not fun. It doesn't help you. It makes you worse as a person. Instead, read the book. Oh, I'm blanking right now. The Flowers for Algernon. If you ever want to study about intelligence, read Flowers for Algernon, and just be blissfully unaware and happy. Just that's what you want to do. Okay, or anyway, so, sorry, side tangent. Okay, so unconscious incompetence. So let's say, Braden, I'm going to put you in in a mogi here. Not a mogi. What is mogi in English? Sorry, that's Japanese. Not simulation. We're going to role play. We're going to role play.
Oh, role play. Okay.
Yeah, so you're going to role play. You're brand new. And let's say you're a mastering engineer. So let's talk about mastering.
Yeah. Okay.
Have you ever been in a time when you first started mastering that you were unconsciously incompetent? You did not realize how much you didn't know.
Yeah, right at the beginning. I posted a meme about it on my Instagram one time, that it was the meme from Michael Scott, and it was like me when I first mastered for a client, and it's like, in a sense, he says, I knew exactly what to do, but in a much more real sense, I had no idea what to do. And like, it's totally true. I remember the first time I mastered something, I like asked somebody else for help, and I just like followed their formula, and I was just like, oh wow, there's a lot more work that goes into this than just like turning it up.
So I think actually this is a good point where in this case I don't think it totally applies in that scenario. First off, you're quite an intelligent person. So in that sense, yeah, deny it. If you accept it, then you're not. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
But you ask questions from the beginning, which is good thing or bad thing. I mean, this is something me and my Japanese traits. And the reason why, one of the cultural things that I love about America, this is just a show of tangents. We're gonna get to the point. Don't worry.
This is wild.
But one of the reasons why I love American culture is that if someone wants to start skateboarding in America, they will start skateboarding. If they had a freaking plank of wood or a free skateboard from the trash, and if that's what they can get started with, that's what they have to get started with, they will get started. It doesn't matter. They're not gonna wait to have the right equipment to get started. That's the American pioneering kind of thing. You start. Or maybe running is the very case. It doesn't matter whether or not you have running shoes or running shorts or and AirPods or whatever. You just start running because you want to run. In Japan, people don't start their hobbies until they have all the equipment. So it's this idea of over-preparation. And I know that you're probably one of those people where you find yourself over-preparing, right?
Me?
Yeah.
Yes. And you know what's funny is I lived in Korea for 2 years, and they do the same thing. For hiking, they have all the gear. For skiing, they have all the gear. Like, they won't start till they have everything.
Yeah,
so I am one of those people.
Yeah. And first off, I forgot to mention this. Braden speaks fluent Korean. So if you ever want to chat with Braden in Korean on Instagram, go reach out to him, Flint Mastering, at Flint Mastering, if you are Korean. Anyway, so this is really interesting. And there's a lot to say about that. And in this case, it's a cultural thing. But I'm the opposite. In that sense, I'm freaking American. Or freaking, like, I do not care if I do not have the supplies. Like, I started painting. I do not care what what painting supplies I have. I'm just like splattering whatever shit I have and doing whatever I have. I have a sponge in under the sink, and I'm like, ooh, a sponge effect would be kind of cool to like dab things. Like I'm good at burning my hand on the stove and realizing, crap, this is harder than I thought it was because I'm an idiot. Okay, so we're gonna. So anyway, that's the first level, unconscious incompetence. So I don't think that your scenario perfectly applies because from the beginning it seems like you ask questions and you recognize that you didn't do this. But in my case, I didn't recognize how bad I was at painting until I started it, and then I was like, oh, wow, there's a lot more technique on how to put paint on a canvas than I realized, right? So, like, I eventually learned fairly quickly, but still. Unconscious incompetence. So it's the blissful state. You're just doing it as a hobby. Number 2 is the conscious incompetence. In conscious incompetence, the learner is aware of a skill or knowledge gap and understands the importance of acquiring the new skill. It is in that stage that learning can begin. Interesting. So when you started asking questions, that's when learning and you're now teachable. You become teachable. There are many people in this world, they're like, I'm the best, and no matter what you say, I'm the best. That's unconscious incompetence. So with producers that have been only doing this for 3 months and they're like, I'm the best, nobody can be better than me. I'm just like a dream waiting to happen. I'm going to blow up. It's just a matter of time and I don't need to put in any work. That's unconscious incompetence. They're not willing to learn, so they're not going to get better. And they think that they're the best. I would say that most people that I talk to that are feeling really inconfident and come to me for learning advice are not part of this category. Number 3 is conscious competence. In conscious competence, the learner knows how to use the skill to perform the task, but doing so requires practice, conscious thought, and hard work. Now, I think that this is where you're at, Braden, and if I may say so. One is, so first off, there's a couple, you can interchange the third and fourth state, and I'm going to talk about how you can. There's different ways to interpret it, but this is the OG one. So let's go back to number 2, conscious incompetence. That means that you're unaware that you don't know how to do something. You're willing to learn. 3 is conscious competence. Now you've learned how to do something, but in order to apply it, it takes a lot of thought. You know how to master it. And this is one of those things where it should be competent, conscious competence. Like you've done this enough where it could become really automatic, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep.
But if you started just becoming, and you haven't been doing this that long, like, so if you were all of a sudden to start becoming automatic now, what would that say about the next 20 years versus if you try to stay conscious about, like, make what kind of compressor and like really try to listen to it, what kind of limiters and really try to listen to it, try to stay conscious about your competence, right?
Yep.
And
I would even put myself in category 2 because I've been doing, which is, remind me what it is, conscious incompetence.
Yeah.
Well, I would say I'm like 2.5. I'm in between 2 and 3 is where I would rate myself on the scale, because I think that where I'm at in my career, and like I've been doing audio for a while, the transition to mastering, like you said, haven't been doing that long, but I feel like, I don't know, and it could be my own personality, but I just feel like there's always something to learn from someone. And so I feel like there's kind of a nebulous area that you can float between 2 and 3 for your whole life, because you can be consciously competent and you can know what you're doing and be really good, but that doesn't mean you can't still learn something from somebody else. So for me, I don't know if I would even say now that I've like voiced this, I don't even know if I would say I'm in 2 or I'm in 3 or I'm in between. I feel like it's a constant flow between the two, where when I'm mastering, I am confident. I know that I'm competent. I know what I'm doing. I'm listening. I'm making the correct decisions. And then other times I'll do something and I'm like, that didn't work. Why? And then it starts me back into phase 2, which is conscious incompetence. And then it's a vicious cycle in a positive way. So
here's where I'm going to butt in and talk a little bit about ego. And not ego in the way that most people use it, but ego in the psychological form. So the ego that beats you down and says that you're not good enough. Not the ego, not people have an ego and like have an inflated head. Not that ego, but like your ego, you cannot see yourself. Like, so this is where I think the the competence stages should be performed by a teacher or like a third party, because I don't have your ego. So when you have issues, I'm immediately like, why don't you just solve it like this? So the only way to fully assess this on your own is either take shrooms or have somebody else tell you. Yeah,
You are only recommending one of those.
Yeah, shrooms. And so I'm teasing. So I think in your case, if I may say so, as can I say business partner and of someone in, I'm going to say the equal playing field. I think that you're at a stage of well, I think that you float between 4 and 3. And the fourth one, let me say the fourth one real quick here. The fourth stage is unconscious competence. In unconscious competence, the individual has enough experience with the skill that he or she can perform it so easily they can do it unconsciously. Now, the reason why that can be a bad thing is because if you're good at what you do, it becomes automatic, then you're no longer learning. You're no longer experimenting. So people will say, try not to become unconsciously competent. Like, try to focus on staying consciously competent. Like, keep putting in the work, keep trying to experiment and try new things. Dave Pensar is a classic example of this. Like, always trying new plugins, trying to experiment with new tools, and don't just badmouth Atmos. Like, try using it and try to understand it. Don't just badmouth trap music if you're from the 70s. Like, try trap music and try to understand where it comes from. Or, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, be aware and put hard work. What does it say? Practice conscious thought and hard work. Right? So put in the practice. So, but I've heard trainers flip 3 and 4, where the third stage is unconscious competence, which I like to think about it like this, like especially in accordance to the Dunning-Kruger effect. People become good that they don't realize how good they are. So then they put themselves in the lower 30 percentile, like those comedians did in that story, right? So then they don't realize how good they are, even though they are full-on professionals. They're professional comedians, but they put themselves at the bottom 0.25% as far as like credibility of how good they are at telling if a joke is funny or not. Which is interesting, right? So I think that's what happens. And so I like to flip 3 and 4. So I think most people are at the stage where I think that you're unconsciously competent. Like, in that sense, I don't think you realize how good you are, but that's not a bad thing. And then if we were to flip it around, the fourth one would then be conscious competence, which is like, that's when colloquially we'd understand ego the way it is, which is, oh, he's got a big head and he knows that he's good. Yeah. Which I think is a good thing to a certain degree. Like, when I say, so that goes back to my Instagram post, when I say I'm good and I know it, that's what everybody should be feeling like. That's not because I'm better than everybody else. No, anybody can say that or think that about themselves across all varying levels. But I think that it means the most once you go through that stage of conscious incompetence and recognize that, like, I'm not good at this. And then, and then, you know what I'm saying? And then you come back to, okay, I'm actually good at this because I've put in the work. I've put in over 10, 20,000 hours. And I think that there's a fine line there. So, anyway, so if I were to rate you on that scale, I think that you float between 3 and 4. Conscious competence and unconscious competence. I don't think that you give yourself enough credit to how good you are, because Braden is actually quite good. And if you want to hire Braden, you should hire him. And I don't, but also you are very open to learning and you put in a lot of effort and thought into it. I think that that's the perfect place that you want to be, except I think you should be a little bit more confident about your work. Can I say that in public on the podcast?
Yeah.
I think that's like a good thing to say.
I think so. Yeah.
You're better than you are. You think you are.
I know that. I personally struggle with confidence. I've struggled with it my whole life with whatever I've done. Like, I was when I was in high school, I played hockey, and I was, for my age group, ranked the third best goalie in the country for hockey at my age group, and I still was just like, nah, I'm not that good. Like, so it's just, I don't know. It's a weird confidence thing for me. So a lot of times I try to emulate, or I wish I could emulate better DK's confidence. So, but
no. And to be fair, every human is really complex and every mind is broken. in some way or another. And if you were to tell me, and I'm going to say this out loud and kind of get through a thought process with you. I say this every single time someone says something like that to me. I hope that I can be confident like DK. Something like along those lines. I will say a big fat thank you on purpose is because that shit does not come natural to me. I have a lot of complexes. Me being on this if you asked me 5 years ago if I would be the front face of a podcast and of some sort of like brand for Make Sense, I would not believe you, because I was the guy that would be like, I don't want to put my face on social media.
Yeah.
You know, I was that guy. And I kind of got over it. Maybe not to the extreme that some people are, but I had a really big problem with self-perceived narcissism. I thought I was a narcissist for a long time, and it took a lot of therapy to realize, no, that was just really bad parenting trauma from bad parenting. And like, we're not going to talk about that, but it's real though. Like, so I had, like, it was to the point where I think I've talked about this on the show before, and this is something private and personal, and I hope that I say this in the hopes that someone can relate. But like, it got to the point where it was so bad that trauma had become so bad, and I've made it so bad in my own mind that I could not look at my own reflection. Like, I would take mirrors down off the walls. Whenever I passed through like school hallways with like windows and noticed all of these teenagers, of course, they're young teenagers or young 20s. They look at their own reflection just instinctively without even thinking about it to check their own hair and their clothes, make sure that they look good, whatever. And I would judge people for that. I'd be like, you can't even walk past a window without unconsciously looking at your own reflection. How narcissistic you are. What a narcissist. And it got to the point where it was just really bad, really unhealthy. And thanks to Shroom as well as therapy. Like, it got to the point where like I learned to be okay with that's like, this is another personal story. This makes me laugh. You should not be doing this. Don't do this. One of the big rules of when you do shrooms is to not look at your own reflection. But I did, because I'm an idiot, and I looked at my reflection. I had the most surreal experience ever. I looked at my own mirror, and for the first time in my life, because remember, in real life, I do not give a shit about how I look, my looks, how I present myself. I just genuinely didn't care, because I thought any sort of self-care or thought about my looks was narcissistic. I looked in the mirror, and the first time in my life, without an ego, I recognized, oh my gosh, you're a decent-looking human being. And in that moment, it wasn't narcissistic. In that moment, it was genuinely pure, like this really clean thought of like self-acceptance, and that it's okay that I thought I was good looking in whatever degree or whatever capacity, and made me recognize how stupid it was to make me think anything before that. Like, anyway, we're getting way off track here, but first off, we're on the live stream, so we're on Twitch right now, Twitch and YouTube. Subscribe to me on YouTube. You can go to mixingmusicpodcast.com/YouTube, or just go on the website and click on the YouTube link. Mixing Music Podcast /live will take you to the Twitch stream. But Mad Mapper, at @mad_mapper, just redeemed. There's point systems on Twitch, and just redeemed the redeemable item of 2,500 points, which is a lot of watch hours. So you get these points by watching the stream. He just redeemed it. I have a point system where you can redeem for 2,500 points heavy Japanese accent. I don't know. I'm debating whether or not I said that I would do this after the episode, but just because it's funny, I'm wanting to do a little bit of it during the episode, so you can interact and ask questions. Matt Mepper says DK has enough confidence for all of us. That's not true. Thank you so much for saying that, because it's taking a lot of work to get to the point where I seem that way. It's taken a lot of conscious effort to be happy, to like myself, to accept myself the way I am. And it was especially difficult for me because, unfortunately, my parents didn't give that to me. They tried their very, very best. And I will never deny their effort. But it was too much. And they at the end of the day, they were unable to give that to me, but it's taken a lot of effort for me to give that to myself. And so I'm trying to do that for everybody that's listening to the podcast, for all of the content here. Get to a point where it's okay that you love yourself, that you think that you're good at things. Get to a level of conscious competence, if we flip that around, right? And I like the flipped version better. It makes me feel better about it. But both works in that sense. Anyway, Dunning-Kruger effect. So to recap everything, if you think that you suck at something, then you probably don't. If you have no experience, little to no experience, and think that you are just a divine messenger from God to do anything that nobody else can do, it's only you, and you've only been doing this for 3 months, you probably suck ass, and you should feel bad about it. And if you've ever heard the term, I can do this on my own, I don't need a team, you are probably having a moment of extreme cognitive bias. One of the stories that made Dunning-Kruger wanting to look into this is in the 90s, as the story goes, there was a bank robber that went into a bank and showed his face on camera, and he was immediately caught because he was all over the camera, didn't dare cover his face. It didn't even think to cover his face. And when he got caught, he was like, "Whoa, you saw my face on the camera? I put lemon juice on my face, and I heard that if you did lemon juice on your face, it'll reflect and glare on the screen and you wouldn't be able to see my face." And that event triggered the idiocy of this dumb robber, triggered Dunning-Kruger to create this thing. So it's a real thing, inspired by idiots and created by geniuses. So if it wasn't for that dummy, then this wouldn't happen and we wouldn't figure it out. Anyway, what a fun journey. Anyway, that's just one of the things I'm really nerdy about and I suffer myself from a lot of I am mentally broken, and I can't tell if I'm dumb or smart, or doesn't. And more importantly, it doesn't freaking matter. It does not matter. I am just trying to be happy. And I hope that you all try to be happy too. Anyway, what did you learn from this, Braden? Any questions?
I mean, I learned probably my favorite quote of all time that you just said.
What is it?
I forgot exactly how you said it. Discovered by idiots, perfected by geniuses. Something like that. When you said that, I was like, oh man, like I don't know. That is just so funny. Well, discovered by idiots, perfected by geniuses. It was something along those lines. It wasn't the same.
I think it was inspired by dummies, studied by geniuses.
Yes, that's what it's inspired by idiots, studied by geniuses. So there's that. Yeah, I mean, I've always kind of wondered that about people and myself, and how do people like get the confidence they do, and how do people think that they're better than they are, and how do people not think they're as good as they are. So it's fascinating for me to learn about, and yeah, I think it's really applicable to music too, especially it feels like there's always a lot of comparison in music, and I think comparing is one of the worst things you can do, and I think comparing also adds to these effects, right? So like if you could be really good, but you might think like, oh well, I'm not as good as that guy, so I suck. That's kind of like I don't know, it's a slippery slope, basically, is what I would say. But I think just like coming back to, I think comparison is like one of the reasons that people feel this way. They might feel unconsciously confident, consciously incompetent. I think that's the one. But yeah, I always like to say it. You'll probably hear me say it a bunch of times on the exclusive episodes when you inevitably subscribe, because they're super dope. But I always say, keep going. You're doing better than you think you are. So, and that's not to give you a big head or whatever, but I do think most people, with the exception, are doing a lot better than they think they are. And just meeting a lot of people in my life doing different things, whether it's medical school, dental school, law school, music. Like DK said, a lot of people have a tendency not to give themselves enough credit. So give yourself credit where credit is due, but don't give yourself too much credit, because then you will stop learning. And that's when everything kind of goes off the rails, in my opinion. If you get to the point where you're like, I don't need to learn anything else, then that is a little bit problematic, because there's always something you can learn. And that's something I've learned from Dave Pensato a lot, watching all of his YouTube videos. Like, how old is that guy? He is super old, and still in his videos, he's like, oh yeah, man, like I learned this really cool trick from so-and-so mixer. And then he like shows it. And I'm like, what do you have to learn? You've done everything, and that was a horrible Dave Pensato impression, by the way. But Yeah, so like just keep learning. I almost said my catchphrase from the exclusive episodes, but yeah, just keep learning. You're doing better than you think you are, and you know, if you need help, see a psychologist, not me or DK.
Yeah, I'm definitely not a trained therapist or a trained psychologist at any sort of point. It's just like I somehow ended up caring about this stuff. I will say though, real briefly, that statistically speaking, so this is the one ego boost I'm gonna do for everybody here. Colloquial ego boost. All right, is that one? Statistically speaking, if you listen to podcasts, then you are, statistically speaking, much more higher educated than the normal average person. And this is statistics of podcast listeners, usually much higher educated, with oftentimes at least some college, if not a college degree. Oftentimes read books and love to learn, have higher income levels than most others, above average income levels, and if you are the type of person that listens to my content, then which is educational content, then you are a learner. And if you love learning, then congratulations, you actually statistically, if you're listening to the show, listen to this episode, then statistically speaking, you are smart.
You're a genius.
Smart enough to recognize. So I think going back to what you were saying about, I think most people have issues where they don't feel like they're good enough when they're actually much better. That usually comes from a sense being some sort of like being smart and recognizing where you stand and how small of a speck you are in this world. So if you are doing that, you're doing a good job. It's absolutely normal, and in fact, a good sign if you don't think that you're good enough. And it's something that you should work to get past and to work for it. And it's not something that just comes. It's something that I think you have to consciously work for. And so on that note, like, I just want everybody to know that's listening, you're good enough, you're smart enough. And I mean that, like, statistically speaking, like, if you're listening to this and you're just an absolute dummy, then like, you are like probably the only person listening to this. Like, there's nobody else listening. I'm just kidding. You are the outlier by far. It is statistically unlikely for you to be listening to this podcast episode and you to be dumb. So it is in so many forms. So good job, everybody. Thumbs up.
Yeah.
Also, just as a joke, so I finally follow through with Mad Mapper's redeeming points. I am very confident with my Japanese accent. Do I sound very Japanese? And my Japanese accent is very good. So does that make me cognitive bias? Because I think my Japanese accent is so perfect.
I mean,
does that make me very bad at Japanese accent?
I mean, you're Japanese, so it sounds pretty good to me.
Oh man, come join us on the streams. It's fun. Also, one more time, thank you so much, Braden, for getting on this episode. But once again, if you want more exclusive content, if you want triple the amount of content, then $4 a month at mixingmusicpodcast.com/exclusive. Also, let's do a brief shout out to our sponsor. Thank you very much for iZotope. You can go to mixingmusicpodcast.com/iZotope or iZotope.com/MMPodcast. It doesn't matter. They both go to the same place. To get 10% off of any iZotope products or get an extended trial period. The default trial length is 7 days, but if you go through those links, you'll get 30 days instead of 7. So check those out. Make sure that, because iZotope is awesome. Braden, you use iZotope. I don't even need to ask you. I know you use iZotope. I've seen you use iZotope stuff. It rocks.
iZotope is dope, to make a rhyme out of it. That should be their catchphrase. How is that not on their website?
iZotope is dope.
I'm going to talk to somebody about that.
iZotope is ISO dope.
Oh, there you go. That's the one.
iZotope is oh so dope.
Got it. Fire.
Yeah, that sucked. Don't. I am consciously incompetent at poetry.
Oh no, see what this has done? Every time we do something, we're going to be like, is this conscious incompetence?
Is this a form of cognitive bias? Yeah.
You've
So,
opened Pandora's box.
last note of the podcast episode: if you've ever heard anybody quote the famous, everybody loves to quote this person. If you ever hear anybody quote this random person I've never met before named I've heard, then it's probably cognitive bias. Hey, so if you've heard like a name, but it's like, hey, I've heard that vaccines work or don't work. Okay, who is this I've heard? And you should ask follow-up questions. And that is the end of this podcast. So everything that I did, you should be so confused with your life and should be questioning everything. No, I'm just teasing. That is not where we're good. Nihilism is not good. Do not. No, you should read some Nietzsche, but don't get caught up in it. All right, love y'all. Happy mixing, my friends, and stay saucy.
Recording stopped.
Recording stopped. Oh my gosh. Oh no. The podcast episode stopped recording partway through. Hold on, how far? Oh, almost to the end. Never mind. Oh yeah, it made it all the way to the end.
That was wild. My brain almost exploded during that episode.
Isn't that fun? We're gonna get into another fun one. We're gonna get into another one. Hold on, my bad. We're gonna talk about. What the heck?
Next, we'll be talking about.
We're going to talk about the Music Modernization Act. Can you look it up? Can you look up the Music Modernization Act?
Yep. I already got it pulled up on copyright.gov. I don't understand any of this legal jargon. But.
What up, Iktal DMB, Jenny Mixed It? Come join us on YouTube or Twitch.
Yo, what up, Jenny? Thank you for liking my last post on Instagram. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jenny, for liking Braden's last post on Instagram. He appreciates it.
I always get really excited when Jenny likes my stuff because she's a part of Engineers and has worked with Mixed by Ali, and so when Jenny likes
she went
my
to
stuff,
Leslie's as well.
That's right. Yes, she was with Mitch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Whenever she likes my stuff, I'm like, yes, I nailed it.
You nailed it. All right, look it up. I'm gonna pee real quick. Is that cool, everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you say it's not cool, that's mean and sadistic. I need to pee. I'm in pain. Also, Mad Mapper says, I differ. What do you differ on? It's great that you differ. What do you differ on?
I think you said that when you were talking about people listening to the podcast not being dumb. I think. I'm sorry, Mad Mapper, if that's wrong. I think that's when it came in. I've been watching the chat.
Calling you. He said, called you dumb, Mad Mapper. Take that personally. Defend yourself. Defend your own honor.
I'm sorry. That's just what I remember seeing it come in.
Don't take that shit.
I'm not taking shots, I promise.
Just trying to cause beef for no reason. I really gotta pee. I'm really well hydrated. I'm really well hydrated. So like, I'm really well hydrated.
Mad Mapper says, "LOL, yeah." Okay, now I don't feel like a total dick.
I will pee.
Cool. Oh man. Well, while DK's gone, we can talk about whatever. If you have any questions about mastering, if you have any questions about what I do, feel free to ask. If you have any questions about what DK does, you can ask me. I might not be able to answer it, but you can ask. But this is so cool. 7 people hanging out with us here. Or at least that's what I'm seeing. I've got Twitch open on my own web browser, but I used to stream on Twitch, and it's hard to get viewers, so this is freaking dope. Thank you, everyone, for sticking around and for watching. I'll speak on behalf of DK. But yeah, I was DK and I had a meeting this morning actually, before we ended up doing the podcast, and we started talking about gosh, it's so confusing. I don't even remember what they're called, the 4 laws of cognitive dissonance or whatever it was. We started talking about it and my eyes just glazed over. I was like, I have no idea what any of this means. So the podcast episode was actually really quite helpful. It cleared a lot up for me because we were talking about compressors, and then all of a sudden we got into that and I was so confused. So I'm glad he laid it all out, but hopefully that episode was helpful for y'all. Like we said, we're probably doing better than you think. So keep going, keep rocking it. Here comes DK. What is he? Wait, what? Oh, he's got a son. Just poke it in the corner of the screen. Nice. But also, on behalf of DK, I will thank you, Composure TTV, for subscribing with your Prime subscription. Thank you. There's Kaname. Everyone say hi to Kaname. Hi. DK, Kaname was also in our meeting this morning with DK. He is such a cute kid. Let's see. Mad Mapper asks, how did you get started mixing music? How is DK? How are you coming in the room like that? That is insane. What is happening? Holy cow. Oh, man. And there's Kyo. Hello, Kyo. But, yeah, Mad Mapper asks, how did you get started mixing music? If the question is for me, I got into it like 6 years ago. I was super obsessed with the Chainsmokers and downloaded Ableton and just tried to copy them. And that's what got me into it. I was a little bit more of a producer. And then as I did audio school, I got more into mixing. And then after I graduated is actually when I switched over to mastering because I just found out I liked it way more. But if that question is for DK, I will let him answer now.
No, nobody cares about me. How did you get started with music? Started mixing because I was cheap and didn't want to pay someone else.
There you have it.
Oh man, I wish I was lying. Hello. This is my youngest. He's my homie with the extra chromie. Say hello. Say it again. Say it again. Ah. 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 Say ah. He's quiet. All right. A minute. Hey, okay. No, go back to mommy. Okay, hold on. I got to wrangle these children up. Hold on.
Homie with the extra chromie. That is the best nickname for a kid I've ever heard. So, Mad Mapper, do you mix? Are you a producer, engineer? Noah, you're a mixer, right? Noah Avery is a mixer.
Well, he's an engineer. He's an engineer, I think.
Oh, engineer. Okay,
From
cool.
Philly. Sorry, I don't mean to dox you.
Yes, now that we said Philly, everyone knows your address.
No, I'm teasing. Okay, hold on. I was gonna say something important. Oh yeah. I have other nicknames too. For example, my name is DK. So a tradition that we have with our family is all the men have initials DKW. So my name is DK Waddell. So like K is my middle name technically, but my dad's name is D, so I've always gone by my first and middle. We call Kaname, but his first name is technically D, so he's D Kaname Waddell. And then our youngest is Darren Kyo Waddell, but we call him Kyo, so we call him by their Japanese middle names. Okay. Let me calm down and just wrangle the kids. This is a funny thing. I have another nickname for my children. So if I was Donkey Kong, then Kaname is Diddy Kong, and Kyo would be Downy Kong. It's okay. You're allowed to laugh. You're allowed to laugh. In fact, it would be unethical to not laugh. Because if you took it too seriously, then you're recognizing it to be a bad thing, and then that's how that works, right? That logic. No, for real though. If having a Down syndrome child was of any choice to anybody, then it's the best. I recommend everybody have a Down syndrome child. They'll easily become your favorites. They're amazing. They're absolutely cuddly, and the cool thing about having like a retarded kid is that like I'm allowed to have a favorite. I'm sorry, Kaname. I love you a lot, and you will always be my oldest. But this dude, he's my favorite. Duh. Like, I think it would be unethical if I didn't love the retarded kid as much. You know, or this. I'm allowed to have a favorite, and he's my favorite. I'm sorry, but you're my oldest, and I will always love you like everybody loves their oldest. You're my first. Anyway, this is getting really dark. It's meant to be funny. Please laugh. All right. Okay. Did you look into the Music Modernization Act? This is a really good one. 2018, Trump signed the Music Modernization Act in the hopes that we can more equalize the distribution of royalties from streaming as platform music was moving. Old music was mostly scores and recordings that moved in physical copies, so it's like tracked via physical sales. Music Modernization Act is an act to modernize and standardize the way that digital streams was counted and paid out in royalties. It's interesting to find out that it was signed during the Trump phase. So, like, one of the most liberal organizations ever, the Grammy organization, signed and made Trump sign this act during one of the most historically conservative presidential periods, which is just funny. It's a funny juxtaposition of the two. It's still like a work in process, and there are many conglomerates that are fighting against the distribution of royalties for individuals because obviously they make less money, and the Grammy board is constantly in the efforts of trying to make sure that producers and songwriters get paid. And we'll talk about what they came up with and the website that they use, the nonprofit that they. So one of the things that if I remember correctly, we'll talk about this on the episode, but when we start recording, one of the things that I remember they're supposed to talk about is the government was supposed to make or at least oversee a website or a product, a company that was supposed to make the way of figuring all the back-end data, the metadata for this stuff, easily traceable and easily uploaded. So it's supposed to be way more accessible than it was before. So kind of like building a Harry Fox agency or like BMI and ASCAP, but specifically for, we'll find out in a little bit, I'm pretty sure it's for the master. So there's the songwriting, there's the publishing, and then there's the master copies, right? So we'll talk about that. And I think this is part of the reason why there's so much recent uproar about owning the master copies, although that's historically speaking, even Michael Jackson bought the Beatles master copies, but we'll talk about that in a second. Let me read some of this so we don't go into this totally blind and have to read everything. So I have no idea what it is. Again,
it looks like there's 3 parts to this act, actually.
Yeah, are you reading this?
Yeah. There's a website I found that's called copyright.gov.
Yeah. We're looking at the same one, /music-modernization.
Yep,
I'm looking at Wikipedia too. Okay, the Orangey Hatch Bob Good Latte. Good latte? Oh, he's a good latte. Music Modernization Act or MMA is the United States legislation signed into law on October 11, 2018 to aim to modernize copyright-related issues for music and audio recordings due to new forms of technology such as digital streaming. It is a consolidation of 3 separate bills introduced during the 115th United States Congress. So we could talk about, so I was right. So it was for compensating for the music modernization and streams. This is going to be super interesting. The MMA is a combination of 3 bills previously introduced in Congress. The 3 bills became 3 titles of the final act. So 3 bills became 1 bill. So Title 1, Music Modernization Act. This act first introduced by the House by Representative Bob Goodlatte on... Good Latte. I think that's how you spell latte. Goodlatte. How do you pronounce that? Good latte? Goodlat? Goodlit?
Goodlat?
Good question. And later, too, by Senate Orrin Hatch. On January 28th, 2018, both versions of the bill overlooked look to improve how music licensing and royalties will be paid in consideration of streaming media services. This bill established, hold on, give me a second. This bill established three major positions. One, it would set up nonprofit governing agency that would create database related to the owners of the mechanical license of musical works. I'm pretty sure that database is Sound Exchange, and we're going to talk about that. The copyright that covers, so they basically forced them to create a nonprofit government agency that would create a database related to the owners of the mechanical license. So mechanical license was just how they, so like how much ownership of the mechanical license, and how much artists get from mechanical licenses, how much money they get from the stream, specifically from streaming service, mechanical licenses, which is also, mechanical licenses is what you would have to buy in order to upload and monetize covers. Okay, interesting, right? Okay, so, this musical work database would be completed with the help of major music publishers. The new agency established a blanket royalty rates that would be used to pay the composers and lyricists when used by streaming services using this database, eliminating the difficulty previously faced by streaming services to properly identify the mechanical license holder. These royalties would be paid in a nonprofit agency as a compulsory license, not requiring the mechanical license holder's permission. The agency would then be responsible for distributing the royalties. Streaming services would still be able to negotiate other royalty rates directly with the mechanical license owner if they so choose. 2. If they ensure composers and lyricists are paid a portion of the mechanical license royalties for either physical or digital reproduction of musical composition at a rate set by the contract. 3. It revamps the rate court process when disagreements over royalties rates arises. Previously, a single judge in the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York was assigned to handle all cases. The bill would be assigned to a random judge of this court to oversee these cases. That third part is, I don't care. In addition to the element of the Fair Play Act, it's called Fair Play Act. That's one extra fair place. Introduce Marshall or blah blah blah. We're at the style of Fair Play Act had been designed to harmonize. New royalties were paid by terrestrial. What kind of biblical word is that? By terrestrial radio broadcasters and internet streaming services under previous law. Songwriters and composers would receive mechanical license royalties to radio play, but the performing artists would not be paid, as use of songs on the radio was considered promotional. Ooh, interesting. So radio plays used to be considered promotional, and so the performing artists would not be paid at the use of songs on the radio when owned by labels. So that was a common contract thing. The Fair Play Act had included language that would allow recording artists to receive performance royalties. However, these parts of the Fair Play Act were not included in the Combined Music Modernization Act. Interesting. Classics Act. Oh, I don't give a shit about classic music. I'm kidding. That's not true. I listen to a lot of classical music. Not as much as jazz, though. The Compensating Legacy Artists for Their Songs, Service, and Important Contributions to Society, Classics Act, was originally introduced to the House in 2017. In the U.S. copyright law, sound recordings made prior to February 29, 1972 were not covered by the under federal copyright law, leaving them up to the individual states to pass laws for recording protection. They had... Okay, so in 1972, there became federal protection for recording. So if you recorded it yourself and you paid for the recordings, you own it. Like, you don't need to send in any sort of... There's not a federal process to how to copyright a song. It was up to the states until 1972, where now it's just kind of... we'll talk about that. This had created a complex series of laws that made difficult for copyright enforcement and royalty payments. The Classics Acts established the sound recordings before 1972 are covered by copyright until February 5th, 2067. Okay, so it's basically the whole rollover thing. The additional language to grandfather older recordings into public domain at an earlier time. Yeah, this is basically public domain, but recordings before 1972. Recordings prior to 1923 will enter the public domain 3 years from the passage time, January 1st, 2023. That's right. This year was the first year that there was a competition at BYU about using now public domain music or something like that. So public domain, this was the first year that they did that from 1923. So next year will be 1924, 1925, and so on and so forth. Every single year, there's going to be a new year of songs released. So in 40 years from now, we're going to have classics from the 60s and 70s. Yeah, become public domain. Like Earth, Wind, and Fire would become, and like Sly and the Family Stone or Beatles will become public domain at some point in the next 40 years. The allocation of music producers... hold on. Title 3, the Allocation for Music Producers Act. Ooh, I think this is where it becomes relevant for engineers. The Allocation of Music Producers Act bill was introduced by Representative blah 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 in 2017 as The bill designates that Sound Exchange, that was right about that. Sound Exchange, the nonprofit organization established by Congress to distribute royalties on sound recordings, will also distribute part of these royalties to a producer, mixer, or sound engineer who was part of the creative process that created the sound recording. Oh my Lanta! Did you hear that? That's huge. This is a big part of this is a big part of that. Okay, I'm going to read that again. This bill designates that Sound Exchange, the nonprofit organization established by Congress as addressed in the Title I, to distribute royalties and on sound recordings, will be distributed part of these royalties to a producer, mixer, or sound engineer who was part of the creative process and created the sound recording. So that means through Sound Exchange, mixers, recording engineers, and maybe I don't know about mastering engineers, but I assume sound engineer would cover mastering engineers, should be receiving royalties from records. And Sound Exchange is how that's done. Oh my goodness.
So what does that mean? You register for Sound Exchange or something?
Yeah, so we've used Sound Exchange in the past. Okay, hold on. Artists and copyright owners. Okay, rates and forms. Hold on. Now I'm going to look up how mixers can... Creative affiliates. The new post-MMA letter of direction. An important part of Sound Exchange mission is making the business side of the industry more efficient so that music creators have more time to focus on their craft. That is why, for many years now, we have honored letters of direction from artists who wish to redirect a share of their royalties to producers, mixers, or engineers who were part of the creative process that led to their sound recordings. Sound Exchange has worked diligently on behalf of recording artists and rights owners for more than a decade, seeking to maximize their share of the revenue. We have paid more than $7 billion in digital royalties to creators and their business partners since 2003, improving the LOD process in one more way we can make it easier for artists to focus on making music. Sound Exchange is pleased to introduce the Creative Affiliate Program as a vehicle to bring participants in the creative process of making sound recordings closer to the heart of our efforts on behalf of the music industry. This program will allow you to connect directly with Sound Exchange and in the coming months have access to several benefits. To learn more about this program, please check out our Creative Affiliate Program FAQs. Wow. Join the affiliate program. If you're a producer, mixer, engineer, you can join the Sound Exchange Creative Affiliate Program. This program will allow you to connect directly with Sound Exchange, will provide you with opportunities to collaborate in new ways that move the recording industry forward. Sound Exchange launched the Creative Affiliate Program as a vehicle to bring participants in the creative process of making sound recordings closer to the heart of our mixers process of making sound recordings closer to the heart of our efforts on behalf of the music industry. There is a nominal administrative fee to participate in the program. In the coming months, as a Creative Affiliate Program participant, you'll have access to the numerous benefits, including a new dedicated phone number to give Creative Affiliate Program participants access to experts who can assist with their inquiries about letter of direction, filings, and payments. Access to benefits including direct discounted studio space and retail incentive programs. Industry newsletters, information, and inside scoops. Opportunity to attend special events. Interesting. I'm not exactly sure how a mixer... Let me go on YouTube and see if there's like a video. Like how mixers... This is super interesting. Let me...
Heard of artists like Lil Durk or even NBA Youngboy. But did you know you can make money by investing into royalties of their actual songs? That being said...
No, we're not going to do that. How to collect royalties as a producer. Collecting your performance royalties. Okay, let me go back to Sound Exchange. So this is really interesting. So this is totally new, and I'm wondering if we should... What do you think? Should we have a professional that knows this inside and out as a guest instead of doing this right now? Or should we do it right now and have a guest come on?
I think it might be best to have a guest that like works in this type of a scenario or in this type of field, just because, to be honest, I have a hard time understanding it when I'm reading it. And also, I've never heard anyone read as fast as you before. So I had a hard time understanding it when you were reading it as well. So I can tell you right now
My
that
bad.
it's going to be hard for me to contribute to the conversation other than go, this is great, you know?
Okay, so
but-
maybe we'll do that for another time. Basically, because of the 2018 Music Modernization Act, every artist, producer, engineer, mixer should be registering their music to Sound Exchange. And from what I understand, that is part of the master recordings portion of royalties, not mechanical, and master recordings, not songwriter and publisher, which is BMI, ASCAP. It's still those PROs. Those are the three. There's like CSAC as well. Those are the three in America. There's different companies or performance right organizations in different countries. So look that up wherever you're at, whether you're in Australia, Norway, Mexico, Chile, wherever these listeners, Germany, I know, wherever you are from. So let's not record that episode then. Let's not record that episode. If you have leads to someone that we can talk to this about, please let me know. I have no idea who to even ask that has professional insight onto this information. I should ask Lou and see if he knows anybody that we could talk to. Interesting. But yeah, we should do that another day. What else should we talk about? What other ideas do you have? What do you want to hear about? Anybody in the chat want to talk about something specific?
I don't know if you've talked about this before, but it might be interesting for people to hear. And I don't know, maybe there's not a lot to talk about it, but the differences between mixing a single versus mixing an album and how those two are different, how they are the same. I don't know if there's a lot to talk about there. There might not be.
One requires more work and one requires less work. End of episode.
Well, you asked for an idea, so I gave. No, I'm just kidding.
I didn't mean to be passive aggressive.
No, it's okay. I'm just teasing.
But I'm trying to think beyond that. I feel like I should say something about the cohesiveness of tracks, but I don't really believe in that. I mean, I could go on for 20 minutes about how I don't believe in that and what that means for you, but I wonder if there'd be enough substance. It'd just be like, well, I don't agree with DK, and I'm like, that's fine. End of episode. So, like, I'm trying to think of something with, like, some substance.
Yeah.
Substance? So, with some illegal substances.
Yeah. If anyone in the chat, there's 7 of you. Actually, I guess I'm one of those people.
No, there's also YouTube, too, so there's actually about more than 10.
Oh, okay. Well, anyone,
And
give
Instagram,
us an idea.
So, yeah, we're definitely past 10.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah, ask us a question. Also, I just finished watching the 2 seasons of Russian Doll on Netflix. First off, it was fine. It was good enough where I like binged all 2 seasons in 2 days, but it was
I don't even know what it is, so.
It's a Netflix show. I don't even remember what I was gonna comment on it. I was gonna comment something about Russian Doll. It was
Well, cool announcement. The album we talked about this morning, just locked it in.
Nice job. So for anybody wondering, Braden's making a new progressive album himself. It's called The Cat's Meow, and it is mostly pitch correcting musical meows into classical notation. So it's classical music with synthesized music, cats meowing or making different cat noises. Also, if you read the pamphlet, you'll find out that all the meows are not actually from a kitten, but is from Braden himself. So they just sound like cats. So congratulations on locking that in, Braden.
Thanks. I'm super excited. It's going to be a chart topper. I can feel it. I'll be sending it to DK for the final mixes, and then I'll be mastering it myself.
That's the smoothest I've been sarcastic in a while.
I know. I'm surprised you didn't start laughing.
I'm not good at sarcasm. I'm so bad at sarcasm, both catching and receiving. Wait, catching and throwing.
Sounded pretty good to me.
Yeah, I've been practicing. Hanging out with Lou.
And a year from now, I'll be releasing another album called The Dog's Woof, which will only be duck samples.
Okay, see, now I know that this was sarcasm. I know that was sarcastic.
See, you can pick up on it.
I'm
Easy.
good at this. Hey, let's see here. What do you want to talk about? I mean, that was a really good episode, I would think, about cognitive bias. I hope that would help people. Do you want
Yeah,
to talk
also, too.
about what's something that we talked about in one of your exclusive episodes?
I was actually going to suggest we could talk about Everything Affects Everything. But we also could just release that episode as not exclusive.
Yeah, we'll probably do that.
Let's see, there was phase issues, learning to listen, mastering with Mike Bosey, taking out rather than adding. There was let me grab my notes. I have a whole plethora of notes from a Gregory Scott episode we could talk about. This is my no desk studio, so I have to stand up and I can't have everything on my desk.
Bianca K. Harper on Instagram says, can you please talk about when and why to out certain sounds in stereo versus mono? To put certain sounds in stereo versus mono. Like in the recording phase or like in the import phase? Or are you talking about just like in the mixing phase?
I would assume all three.
All three. Like
'Cause-
recording an acoustic guitar with one microphone versus like a stereo pair of microphones. Idea.
Oh, this would be interesting, possibly. Mixing your song as far as possible with no mix bus processing. Because he talks about the idea of his mix bus processing actually makes it more difficult for him to mix, and he fights it a lot of the time.
I think we've touched briefly on the mixers that do. We've talked. We can also go back to old podcast episodes and do like part 2s or revamp old ones. I produce an FL, then transfer to Pro Tools, then I get lost. Mixing and importing. I import everything the way it is. So like if everything's stereo, it's actually a mono signal, but there's signal in both left and right. And I want to pan it one direction, I just keep it stereo and I just pan one side. So if I want to turn it left, then I just take the right one and I pan it all the way left. So if it drops a mono signal into a stereo track like it often does, then I wouldn't worry about it. I wouldn't split it into mono and delete one end. I would just leave it the way it is. Yeah, I just you can do that, and like the only reason why I would split it back into mono and bring it into mono is if I'm doing some sort of like panning automation where it's annoying to have to pan left and right to automate going left and right, or yeah, that's it. That's the only reason, really. All right, you are looking deep in thought. Also, do you have a mustache? I'm just not recognizing this.
I do.
Wow.
My wife hates it, but
Yeah?
everyone loves it.
I
Everyone
grow a
knows what it is.
mustache every November.
For No Shave November?
Yeah, Movember.
Oh, for okay, cool.
Yeah, no shave November, don't shave December, just don't January, forget it February, manly March.
I'm assuming you've done an episode about. I'm just now registering all the names you were just saying to me.
Episode about what?
I am almost positive you've done an episode about mentoring, correct?
Probably.
Like finding the right mentor and how to find a mentor and what to talk with your mentor about.
I think that'd be a good one, actually. Although I don't know if I would be the right person to talk on it because I have a lot of mentors, but like I've never like assisted for somebody or interned for somebody.
Oh, well, that's
But
okay.
I've had a lot of mentors. I think I definitely can have opinions. I'm a professional opinion giver for sure.
I'm not even talking about assisting. I'm talking about like I've had people hit me up on Instagram and ask, like, you know, I have my like get a mentor video on my page, and people are like, "How do I do this?" Like, what do I look for in a mentor? Like, what kind of person should I be looking for? Who should I talk to? Where should I go? So I don't even think it's a matter of assisting, but just finding somebody that's like doing what you want to do and that is available to meet with you every now and again to discuss that.
I think that'd be a good one. The importance of a mentor.
And I can specifically
What do you think,
speak to the
Chad?
importance of
What do you think,
having
chat?
you mentor me. Say
What
what?
do you think, chat? I just don't want it to be about on the podcast. I don't want it to be a teacher-student relationship. I want it to be you on equal footing.
Got it.
Yeah, that's the only thing.
Well, I feel that way, but I mean, it would be ridiculous to deny that you have mentored me.
Oh, I'm not asking you to deny it. No, I'm definitely a big part of your life, for sure. No cap.
DK flies to Utah, I fly to LA, and we hang out.
I'm teasing. I'm teasing.
Huge parts of each other's life.
But I'm teasing. I'm teasing. But for real though.
And we don't have to do that. It was
that
just
caffeine just hit me so hard during that last episode. I focused so hard on that last episode. Let me do this. I'm gonna scooch through. Hold on. I'm gonna think of a topic in a second. Give me 5 seconds. I'm gonna steal a topic from somebody else that's been making music YouTube videos for. I'm definitely stealing a topic.
the difference between a Focusrite interface and a $1,000 A to D converter.
Gosh dang it. Hold on. We've talked about mixing faster. Okay.
How about mixing slower?
We could talk about how I like FabFilter Pro Q3 and talk about a little bit what we were talking about before.
Yeah. I mean, you've done a
Mhm.
favorite plugins episode, right?
I think. Oh, we could do a plugin update. Although, what
'cause
have I
I
been
think-
using recently?
The last time I listened to you talk about plugins, you were not using that CornF thing that I now see you use on everything.
Oh.
And you use a lot of Valhalla, which I don't think I heard about in the last one.
I can't tell my
Fab-
secrets. I'm just kidding. That's not a
Oh,
secret
I'm
in the
sorry.
least. Just join me. If you watch my live streams, you want to talk about what we... Oh, you've watched my live streams? You want to talk about what we learned from watching me mix?
That'd be great.
I don't know. Like, can we not make it about me, but talk about that?
Yeah.
No, it's going to have to be about me, huh?
I mean, it's your show.
Damn it. Why did I do this? No, just kidding. Are you ready? You want to do it?
Yeah. Well, wait, which one are we doing?
What you learned from watching me mix and master.
Okay.
Is that
What
fair?
I
Is that okay,
personally-
chat?
What I personally learn or what anyone can learn?
Both.
Okay.
What do you think, chat? Chat is silent. All right, let's do it. Oh, shoot. I broke my little mini trash can. Hold on. I keep using it as a footstool. Oh, I didn't break it. It just tearing me apart, Lisa.
Actually lied. DK doesn't use Valhalla. He just uses the stock Pro Tools Reverb plugin. That's his secret.
Deverb is amazing, actually.
It is. Dave Pensato loves it.
Deverb church setting. I love the way that the tails of the reverb like kind of modulate at the end. Love it. All right. Okay, ready? You ready?
Yep, I am recording. Wait, is that
Recording in progress.
Okay. Oh shoot. Firewire, hold on, bandwidth.
Oh, Mad Mapper says 3 must-have plugins.
Ooh. Hold on. It's working right now. I'm afraid that the audio might not work. Okay, here we goes. Let's sync up. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, there's no point for us syncing up if I do it so fast you can't even anticipate it. Oh crap. Hold on, we gotta sync up again. I messed up. I'm not even recording my own mic input. All right, ready?
Yep.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 7. Okay. Here it comes. Hello and welcome back to the Mix of Music Podcast. I am your host, DK. And unfortunately, Lou is not with me. He is still out from the vid. Please wish him better. Pray for him. Whatever you want to do to help him feel better. Send some good vibes into the cosmos, and hopefully it reaches him. Anyway, today, my co-host is the illustrious Braden Flint.
Heyo, what up?
What up, Braden? I was gonna say Braden Flint, and I just came out with Braden. My bad. Braden, if you know, is my co-host on the exclusive podcast episodes available at mixingmusicpodcast.com/exclusive, where you will get access to 3 times the amount of episodes. That's right. Not only will you get one episode every Tuesday at 6 a.m. Eastern Time, you will also get a new episode every Wednesday and Thursday at 6 a.m. Eastern Time. And guess what? Due to popular demand, every single one of these Wednesday and Thursday episodes will be absolutely 100% technical. All the technical doohickeys, and we will have guests on it. Well, they're technically not guests. They're not specific from us, but we're collecting audio from videos, podcasts, other sources, and creating clips, digestible clips that from award-winning producers and engineers, and then we are expanding on these technical insights that they give us. For example, we've had now Mike Bosey, we've had who else have we had? Gregory Scott on there.
Leslie Brathwaite, Young Guru, Marcella Areca.
And many more to come. I'm sure Dave Pensado is going to be part of that group as well. Kind of like we take clips from various different channels and various different interviews and try to expand on different technical things that they've done. So it's actually extremely insightful. I am also on that portion of the show oftentimes. So once again, you can get access to mixingmusicpodcast.com/exclusive. All right, Braden. Braden is the man. Wonderful, generous co-host, and a great person. So we're excited to have you kind of fill in when Lou is unavailable, as well as just goof off every once in a while. All right, so because that's what this podcast is we're just professionally goofing off and professionally going on tangents. I don't know why you listeners are enjoying this. I'm teasing, but
They're here for the lulz.
Yeah, the lulz, the LMAOs, the lamaos. And we're gonna get right into it. Today's topic is, for anybody that's on the live stream, we are live right now, twitch.tv/DK Mixes. We are live right now, and we have guests here. We have Braden here. Braden has watched me mix many times, has watched me master many times, has reviewed old mixes and masters that I've done many times, and I'm sure many of you have seen me mix on Twitch many times. I mix every Thursday morning from 10 a.m. to noon, every Thursday, 10 to noon, Pacific Standard Time, so LA time. And and I'm sure we've also had many interns that watch me mix. I love it when people learn by watching me mix because they're able to take insight beyond what I'm actively trying to give them. So they ask questions, and I'm able to answer questions that I didn't know that they had. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what you can learn from watching DK mix. And I know that's a little bit specific, but I think we could do it. And so I'm hoping that Braden has watched me enough times to either figure out what kind of questions to ask me or what kind of insight you've had from watching me mix, and hopefully I can expand on different things that I've done or do that you'll recognize patterns. So this is not about what's good or bad about mixing and it is kind of a little bit about how I make dope sounding records, but hopefully it's one person's insight into mixing and what you can potentially learn and take away from it. My way of doing things is very quirky, it's very weird, and it's my system that works for me. I recommend everybody else do the same thing. You should figure out your systems and figure out what works for you. But on that note, let's get us started, Braden. Give us a little bit of background on what you've seen and some habits that you've seen.
Yes. So first off, I will also say watching DK Friday mornings on Twitch at 10 a.m. Pacific time when he does Mix Feedback Friday is also super helpful because he will take people's mixes On the podcast, you can't see the face he's making, but you can send him your mix and he will give you feedback on it. And sometimes he will kind of adjust things in the mix, say, here's what I would have done if I was mixing. And honestly, sometimes that is super duper helpful to have somebody show you what you can do to your mix to improve. DK also posts those on YouTube, youtube.com/DK mixes. So you can watch his mix feedback Fridays as well. So
I don't want this to be like a PR interview episode with me. No,
it's okay. I'm going to jump into the thing now.
Okay, cool.
But so there's a couple big things that I have learned from watching DK. Number one,
how to drink water like a boss.
Yeah. Be good at mixing. No, I'm just kidding.
I know how to be good at mixing.
That's the first thing you're going to learn, how to be good at mixing. No, so the first thing that I'm going to say that you will learn from DK is to learn a workflow and to learn to take that workflow and apply it to your own and or come up with your own workflow. So let me explain. A lot of people, when they mix, and I used to do this as well, mix engineers that I work with do this. My friend in Nashville that mixes does this. A lot of mix engineers like to start mixing with the drums. I'm going to throw out a number here. I would be willing to bet that 85 to 90% of mix engineers start with the drums. And I've heard a lot of mix engineers say it's
if you don't start with the vocals. If you don't start with the vocals, then if you in the instrumental, you start with the drums.
Yes. Yeah, and we'll talk about separation between instrumental and vocals as I've watched DK mix as well. But if you're starting with
leave a comment. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment. What do you start with?
Yes,
Sorry.
Exactly.
I keep interrupting.
No, you're totally fine. It's great. Leave a comment. Tell us. And okay, so I've heard a lot of people say if you can get the drums to sound good, then it will help the mix sound good without having to do that much to other stuff. Now, let me be clear. I preface that by saying I've heard people say that. In my experience, that wasn't always the case. Just because the drums sounded good doesn't mean that the rest of the mix was like, oh, sick, now it's dope. Obviously, you have to treat everything else. A lot of people start with the drums because that's what they think is if you start with the drums, you're going to get a good sound no matter what. What DK does is DK starts mixing with the bass, which he's making more faces, which I have never seen anyone do. I went to audio school for 6 years because I'm dumb. It took me forever to get through it. But the full, school's 4 years.
No masochist things on the podcast. You're not allowed to self-deprecate.
But if it took you 6 years to get through audio school, I apologize. I'm not attacking anyone.
Also, it took me 5 years to figure out to drop out. So, does that make me dumber?
So in 6 years of watching people mix, and obviously a lot of people are students, they're learning, but even watching the faculty mix, nobody started with the bass. Nobody, not a single person I watched. Everyone starts with the drums or the vocal. So that's something unique that DK does that you can learn from, not necessarily, I got to start my mix with the bass now because that's what DK does. What you should learn from that is that you don't have to start the same way other people start. If you get a mix and you think, man, these guitars sound like butt, start with the guitars, and then as you go along, you'll have to make adjustments. You'll probably have to make adjustments to the guitars as you move along just to make sure they fit with other things and that they sound good in the mix as a whole. But start with what you want to start with. Don't just do the drums or do the bass or do the vocals because somebody else does. So that's the first thing you can learn from watching DK mix is that there's a unique workflow that everybody has and you've got to find your own. So DK, quickly for you, how did you find that workflow? Why did you figure out that starting with the bass is what works best for you?
Yeah, this is actually a good question. I've never really thought about how that started, when that started, why that started, but I think I have an answer. First off, I have no idea when it started. I have no clue. I don't think it was at the beginning. If I had to guess how it started, it was because I wanted the relationship with the kick and bass to sound really good together. And the way that I used to do it is the way that everybody else does it, which is start with the kick drum and the snare and do all of the drum stuff and then do the bass. And every time I did that, I worked on at least 3 to 10 other tracks before working on the bass, but the biggest problem that I had was bass and kick together. And so what I did is I just dragged up the bass to be first, and so that I can work on the bass and kick immediately after each other and make sure that that was like the baseline. The first thing that I ever figure out was the bass and the kick relationship, so that doesn't become an issue later. Like, so there's no gap or in between time where I can lose inspiration. So that's why it was like very pragmatic. Like, I just wanted to work on the bass first so I can get that right, so I didn't have bass kick issues later. And yeah, that's kind of been my thing ever since. And so I tend to have quite a solid, I don't do too much and I don't do too little. Like, meaning that like I tip my mixes are not known to have a lot of bass or not enough bass. My mixes are known to have a varying amount of bass, and more importantly, they're really solid foundations. Because I really feel like for me, bass, especially if it's like droning sub basses, like if it's very percussive bass, it's very different. Like a funk bass, how I treat a funk bass is very different, or like a melodic funk bass is very different from how I treat sub basses in pop, like droning basses. And so, yeah, especially if it's a droning bass, I gotta work with that first. Make sure that it cuts through, that I have enough saturation, whatever, or compression, whatever it needs to balance those out, automation, to get it done, and make sure immediately right after work on the kick drum so I can make sure that that relationship is solid, because those two things for me are the foundational parts of it's the foundation of most pop and hip hop mixes.
There you have it. And notice DK says it's the foundation of most pop and hip hop mixes. This is also going to be genre dependent. I listen to a lot of metal music and I listen to a lot of pop punk, and in those genres, the bass is not as important, in my opinion, in my experience, as it is in hip hop or pop. It's mostly the guitars and the drums that really are supposed to shine. So I'm sure there are some engineers that start with the guitars, they start with the drums. But and then of course in metal, like the screaming vocal, of course, is also the focus. So the point of that is to say, find the workflow that works for you. And that's something that you can learn from DK because he has mastered his workflow. The second thing I'm going to say, well, now he's making faces, so maybe he hasn't.
No, I sure. For the sake of argument, I definitely have. But I just can't think of like anything else except the cognitive bias episode that we did. I think that that's going to release before this one. It's just like every time that I say that I'm really good at something, now I'm worried. I'm really good at it.
You're not.
Am I now? Oh, I don't know. Is that cognitive bias?
I mastered my workflow.
Thank you.
So the second thing you can learn, and obviously there's like a never-ending list, but these are some of the things that I have focused on and learned the most. Number 2 is that you don't have to do a lot to get a good mix. And this is a little bit dependent on the production and the arrangement that comes to you. If the production and the arrangement is really good, you don't have to do a ton of processing to the tracks. And I've watched DK do this. Some of the tracks he gets, there's like not a ton that he does individually to each of them because they're already really good. That being said, sometimes you get tracks that are not good and you might have to do a little more to them. But you don't have to like over process things like crazy. I think that sometimes people I don't know what that was. People can get caught up in what I would refer to as plugin madness. Oh, it doesn't sound the way I want it to, so I got to throw 20 different plugins on there to get it to sound good. And you don't have to do that. Sometimes taking things away, which is also something DK is really good at, adds more than adding things. So, if you want a mix to be brighter, cut the low end a little more. If you want it to be darker, cut the top end or boost the low end a little more. There's things like this that my train of thought is going all over the place now. I don't know where it's leading. But basically, sometimes you can do more by doing less, if that makes sense. And that's something that DK is really good at that you can learn from his streams. DK likes to cut in terms of EQ. DK likes to cut a lot. And by cutting and removing problems, it will fix the rest of the parts that aren't cut and make them sound better as a result. So maybe you don't need to add something. Maybe you need to cut something. So that's number 2, is that DK doesn't always do a ton. When he needs to, he can, but he doesn't always do a ton, and he does more cutting than adding. So where did that mindset come from for you, DK? Doing a little does more, and also cutting more than boosting.
Yeah, I think this is what comes from experience. I think most engineers get to this point eventually, which is after a certain point, you start to recognize that a lot of these producers, A&R, whoever you're working with, artists that send you mix, after a certain point, they want more than anything else is like a thumbs up approval. And oftentimes, this is something that I learned from like Leslie. Leslie's a big fan of this, where like often like he does so little. How do you rationalize someone paying you that much for a mix? Because he charges quite a bit for doing so little to it. And he says, most of the time people pay me to know what to do. And one of the hardest things to figure out what to do is knowing when not to do something. And that is something that takes a lot of time and experience. And I think for me, I like to keep the vibe of the record. I'm a producing mixer, meaning that I have the ability and capability to finish and change the song much more than a regular mixer would. But I also can recognize when things are good enough and they don't need to be changed. I will, if I think there needs to be a vocal chop or something that happens or some sort of beat cut or something like that, I will add it in as a mixer because I think it sounds better. And then I'll send the client. If it's too much of a change, then I'll make sure I'll confirm that it's okay with the client. But oftentimes they'll say yes because it actually sounds better because I'm good at what I do. But I would say that, so I'm able to do a lot more, and I have I am a musician first, right? So like I am able to do a lot more, But at the same time, a lot of these records, I also recognize when they don't need to do anything. And that is a skill that's really, really hard to do. There's no plug-in madness. I recognize this sounds good. I just need to turn it up or down or not do anything at all. And that saves them. It keeps it closer. They're more happy with it because I'm not changing it as much. And then there's also, but I will say though, one thing that I'm also really confident with is doing really crazy and weird cuts that if anybody saw me visually, they'd judge me, be like, how can that sound good? Because that looks awful. That looks like spaghetti. That EQ looks like pasta. And that's fine. Like, it's as long as it sounds good. I recognize I have a really good ability to find out what sounds good and not give a shit about what it looks like. So when I do crazy cuts with like 20 bands, that might be a sign where I'm starting to lose confidence in my decision and I might have to restart over. But if I keep it, it's not weird for me to keep it. And I think that I have the ability to know when not to do something, but also have the ability to know how far I need to go somewhere in order to get it done. So both ends of the spectrum there, because you've seen me do some crazy weird stuff that no normal or noob or intermediate mixer would ever dare doing because it looks crazy.
Yes.
But I've also done records where you're right, like there's like three EQs on the entire track and then limiter and that's it. And so it's just knowing your boundaries and knowing what the client wants, and that definitely like Leslie influence on there. Where Leslie is more of like a traditional mixer, but I'm more of like a producer mixer. Like I tend to change things more. Leslie's goal is to change it the least amount and kind of respect and honor the rough mix as much as possible. So I'm kind of an in-between.
Got it.
The number two thing is subtractive. So we talk a little bit about this on one of our exclusive episodes, which I highly recommend you check out. Again, one more time, mixedmusicpodcast.com/exclusive to get access to that. That's $4 a month or $40 a year. Less than a cup of coffee for a month. So, anyway, so that information, I talk a little bit about this, but one of my favorite tools that I have is the FabFilter EQ. For one specific function. It's called the auto gain, I think, or something like that. At the bottom right in all of their functions, there's a capital A, a bold capital A. And what it does is it compensates for the gain added or lost. So if I cut 10 dBs at 1K, it'll boost the signal to kind of, so when you bypass it, it'll be at the same relative volume. It's not perfect, but the same relative volume, just with the tonal difference. So just to be clear with it, that means, so for example, if I have a high shelf that does 10 dBs of gain from 1K, and then I drop the volume 10 dBs, what have I done? I've really just created a low shelf cut, 10 dBs at 1K. Or let's do the opposite. If I create a 10 dB high shelf cut, 10 dB high shelf cut at 1K, and then I boost it 10 dBs. What have I done? I've done a 10 dB boost from a low shelf boost from 1K, right? So because of that mode, whenever I dip something, so if I dip 3 dBs at 1K, like a bell dip at 1K 3 dBs, what it's actually doing, it's not just dipping, but you can also interpret it as it's boosting the lows and the highs 3 dBs because it's automatically compensating the gain. So I'm cutting, but because it's doing automatic gain compensation, I'm technically also boosting. But you'll only ever see me like boost on FabFilter, or cut on FabFilter. I rarely ever boost on FabFilter. And that's one of the things that you have to recognize is that like a cut for in that episode, the exclusive episodes, they said that like if you want to make something brighter, just turn down the low end, do a high pass filter, and it'll automatically make the mix brighter, and that's true. Like it's a tonal balance. It's a teeter-totter balance. So for me, I just like to boost. I think like the technical reason, the philosophy of why boosting is more important than cutting is the idea of just like cleanliness. It doesn't make sense really, honestly. The more I think about it out loud, the cleanliness of you want to take out what's bad before adding what you think is good for the fidelity of the signal. I'm sure that there's some sort of science thing there that I just genuinely don't give a shit about because it doesn't matter, because it does the same thing especially if you compensate with gain. And so for me, I think logically more from a subtractive mindset. I think that also comes with Leslie too. Leslie's a very much take out what's bad before adding what's good mentality. And that doesn't mean I don't do additive EQ. I definitely do additive EQ, but it's mostly subtractive, and subtractive is first before additive for me personally.
Got it. Yeah, I work the same way. I do subtractive before additive. I feel like that sounds best to my ears and my own personal taste. But okay, so that was number 2, that you can do you can do less to do more, and also cut before you boost, or try doing more cutting than boosting. Okay, and I've got 4 of these. So number 3 is try new tools and experiment with the tools you have. That is something that DK, like I have never seen such a massive list of plugins in my entire life. when he opens his plugins, and the crazy thing is DK has 9 billion plugins, and when he does something, he opens up the plugin menu and doesn't scroll through. He goes to the search bar and types what he wants because he knows the sound he's looking for. Because, in my opinion, he has tried so many of them so many times. He's tried new tools. He's experimented, that he knows what each one does, and he knows which one is going to work best for each scenario. So if you're somebody that's been doing this for a long time, you might have your set of go-to tools. You might have tried a bunch of different things and find what works best for you. But I would even still say, just try new things out. Try a different compressor, try a different EQ, try a different limiter, because they're all going to have their own characteristics and they're all going to do their own thing to the signal, which might be something you like. And sometimes trying something new is a good way to get out of a rut. If you feel like you're stuck, if you feel like, I don't like the sound of this anymore, I don't know what to do, just try something different. And you might even use the same tool, but just do it in a different way. You know what I'm saying? So that's one thing that I have seen DK do a lot is like, I feel like DK's always got some new plugin he's trying out, doing the trial version of it, seeing how it sounds.
I literally just downloaded something I'm wanting to try out tomorrow or later today after this stream is over.
There you go. So try new tools. You never know what you're going to like. And sometimes, honestly, the stuff that's like $10, $20 is like really, really good. So you don't have to go out there and buy these super expensive plugins. Although I will recommend the FabFilter Pro Q3. It's an expensive EQ.
Just buy it once. It's expensive. Yeah, just buy it once. You're never going to look back.
To answer some of the questions in the chat, 3 must-have plugins. That is one of them. You have to have the Pro Q3. But yeah, so to say it again one more time, and I won't harp on it anymore, just try new tools and experiment. Use the old tools in new ways. Use new tools in old ways.
Yeah, that was not... Yeah, that does not work backwards.
I started to say it, and then I was like, yeah, that doesn't work.
Well, I mean, it kind of works. I mean, like, use new tools in traditional ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there you go. Kind of. Yeah, okay, sweet. So, yeah, this is actually super important, and I think it's a big deal. Who makes a big deal out of this is Dave Pensado. And I think going back to, like, referencing back to our previous episode together, which was about cognitive bias and the competence, levels of competence and learning, I think this is really, really important. One, it keeps me out of complacency as far as like, I'm automatic enough to be really efficient, but there's a part of the time where it's not automatic on purpose. I think through it because I want to try things. Now, I have systems around trying to do this, so I'll tell you about one of them in a second. But I think it's absolutely important, if not for the sake of, if at least for the sake of learning and growing and expanding my palette and tastes. I think it's very important for everybody to experiment and try trials for different plugins and different tools. I want to be clear about something. I can outmix you with default plugins, okay? It is not going to make your mixes better to have different tools. It's not. I had someone while they were watching me stream, someone commented and said, DK, you like to use tools that nobody knows. You like to use tools that like aren't mainstream. And it was interesting to me because from their perspective, I use tools that like just to be a hipster almost on purpose. But that's, to me, I've never thought that. I've never thought I'm going to use tools that nobody else has because I'm trying to be a nuisance when I send over sessions. No, like that's not it at all. It's more about I know what I like, and I happen to like the ones that are less mainstream. And then I also use a lot of super mainstream Waves plugins. So it's like, it's more about I know what I like, and I know what's good for me. So I want to be clear about that. I don't use weird lesser-known plugins for the sake of using weird lesser-known plugins. Like if I'm using a weird lesser-known plugin, that means I really like it. And I think it does something better, or at least gets me to a place faster than if I were to do it myself. For example, there are a lot of plugins out there like saturation plugins or anything where I can hear what it's doing to the audio, and I can basically low-key emulate it with an EQ. For example, there's a couple settings in Decapitator where I'm like, okay, if I just do this, boost here, cut here, boost here, and on an EQ, I can make it sound it, but it's not distortion, it's just additive or cutting EQ, but I can give it the same similar tone. I've done that a lot with like Lou once bought like a summing mixer from Dangerous, and I was able to I could do this with the tone that you're getting out of the summing mixer. I can do with an EQ. Like I know exactly what it's doing. I can hear what it's doing, and I was able to get really, really close actually with just a Pro Q3 or how it changes the tone. It's interesting as far as like tonally going. Like dynamics, I can't emulate that with an EQ, but like tonally, I can emulate that. But there are a lot of tools out there that I like, quite frankly, have no idea what it's doing, but it sounds great, or I'm not able to emulate it, or more importantly, it would take me way too long to try to figure out how to do that with a Pro Q3 on this, how it's interacting with this track. So it's like the plugin for me is a means to do something faster, get to a location faster. It's true, I didn't recognize that you recognize that I rarely ever scroll through the list. I do sometimes, but I almost always type it in.
Yep.
You're right. I know exactly what I want, and I think that's what separates really great mixers from like beginner mixers, experienced mixers from beginner mixers, where beginner mixers are like scrolling through, figuring out what they want to do, but experienced mixers know exactly what they want to do. They're just trying to figure out how to get there. So oftentimes I have tools, and dare I say, I do have a personal set of plugins that I use quite often. Like I have habits, like I have tendencies and habits, and I have my go-to plugins for different things, but I have a lot of go-to plugins. Meaning, I have like 30 go-to compressors, depending on, let's say I have a 10 for different ones that I like to go through for drums. But it totally depends on how the drums are hitting and how I want them to hit after the compression. Let alone, so I first need to determine, does this drum stereo track need a compressor to begin with? And on top of that, which compression tone is my best guess at achieving what I want? So for example, do I want dynamic control but without the tonal character shifting too much, and I just want something super duper duper fast, maybe with a little bit of a mid-cut, API 2500. Do I want something that smashes the shit out of it, makes it feel old and vintage, then either Volf compressor or the Silica from Kush Audio? Do I want something super transparent and linear that like is gonna give me a compressed vibe but not too much of a difference? Then I'm probably gonna go something VCA like a SSL or like an iHeart New York, the
Baby Audio,
the Parallel from Baby Audio. So right,
Yep.
So I have a lot of go-tos. My palette is quite big, and that comes from experience. And so I think that and it only helps me become a better mixer. Like, you don't need these large palette of plugins, but just like a painter, like the more colors you have, it's great. For experienced painters, they say don't buy too many different colors. It's better for you to learn how to mix and blend colors and try to get a lot of different colors out of like the main primary colors than it is for you to have like a stack of 20 different colors and like not having to blend anything. So like I do recommend for beginners, like like do use default plugins for the sake of learning it. But once you get to a certain point, like it's really great and way faster to have an extensive library of plugins that do different things, and then you can also expand your palette and what you like and kind of. But the big sorry about this. I'm long-winded right now. But the big point of all this is know what you do, figure out what you like, have confidence in your ability to figure out what you like and what you don't like. I think it's totally okay for you to dislike a mainstream plugin. So, for example, the clear example of this is a person that we've interviewed on the show multiple times, a good friend, Jesse Ray Ernster, Grammy-winning Jesse Ray Ernster. He's told me multiple times, I hate the Shadow Hills mastering compressor. He just cannot get it to work. And he's told me that multiple times every time I've posted about it. And I don't like it that much. Like, I think it's I think a little goes a long way. And like, if you go past minus 1 dB of gain reduction, you're already doing too much with it. The way that it smushes things is really weird. And I've used the hardware too. Kind of weird. But at the same time, like, it's okay to not think something's good. Like, it's more about having the confidence to trust your own skills and to try them enough and be able to come up with your own opinions. Okay, one system that I do to remind myself, because I don't have 900 plugins front of mind. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can only remember 50 plugins at a time. And then I'll realize, like, oh, none of the ones that I want to try. Sometimes I'm like, I want to experiment and try a totally different compressor, so I scroll through the list to remember what I have. But another thing that I do, I have a sticky note on my desktop, and I've typed in plugins that I haven't used in a while, that I've had and never used, or that I've just bought, and I leave that sticky note on my desktop, and sometimes I reference to it while I'm mixing to remind myself what I should try. So it's like, I always have new plugins front of mine and try to add them to my palette. So it's like, oh, going through my list and recognize that I haven't used this EQ or used this compressor for a while and I've had it for forever. I want to use it on my next mix just to remind myself what it sounds like. I leave a sticky note with the names of the plugins on it and just make sure to remind myself to try it out on the next mix and formulate an opinion. Amen. Done. I'm done. Sorry, that was really long-winded.
No, that was great. Honestly, like, it's super good to hear you talk about your thought process with plugins and your decisions on which ones to use. I mean, this is what everybody wants, right? This technical information from DK that you can get it from subscribing to our exclusive content. We're giving you just a little bit of a taste here.
It's a subscriber die. Subscriber die.
Subscriber die, baby. No, sorry, I had to shameless plug it.
We're done promoting it. We're done promoting
yes,
it.
Last time.
People will get it. I do think that this is a good time to talk about our sponsor, though.
Yes.
Big shout out. Thank you to iZotope.
Ew.
We love iZotope. We use Ozone, RX, Neutron, Vocal Synth, Trash, Vinyl
Insight.
is free. iZotope's generic, the free stereo width or whatever it is like, I use that on like a lot. Like, it's one of my favorites. I will say though, Algorithm 1, Type 1, not Type 2. So it's either the first original Gen 1 stereo wide and a stereo width free plugin, but if you're using the new updated one, then Type 1, which is keep it at 6 milliseconds. Type 1, that sounds amazing. Not Type 2. Type 1 is my favorite. All right, but try it out. I mean, according to what I just said, I think that regardless of whether or not I like it, what I think you should experiment and try out Type 2 and change this millisecond, but whatever. Yeah, iZotope. I love iZotope. And guess what? Because of them sponsor the podcast, you can go to mixingmusicpodcast.com/iZotope. One more time, that's mixingmusicpodcast.com/iZotope. And you could get 10% off any of their products. And or they extend their trial periods, their monthly subscription bundles. They extend their trial periods. Instead of 7 days trial period, it becomes 30 days if you go through that link. So if you want an extended trial period, again, one more time, mixingmusicpodcast.com/iZotope. I will say that Lou and I are subscribed to iZotope's top-tiered monthly subscription podcast, which is like their everything bundle, and it is absolutely wonderful. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Can't get enough of iZotope. Thank you so much for subscribing to the for sponsoring the show. Okay, what is your number 4 thing?
Number 4 thing is, and this will be the last one, but this is arguably the most important. Bum, bum, bum.
Uh-oh.
And that is be intentional. You can learn how to be intentional from DK about your mix decisions and your mix moves, okay? And let me say this This is a hot take. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I feel like DK says this a lot. But if you are doing something in your mix just because somebody else told you to, stop doing that. If it works, great. If it doesn't, stop it. You need to use your ears and be intentional about what you're doing. So if someone says, "Oh man, this guitar."
Yeah. The 1176 Revision A is like the best thing on electric guitars. And CLA uses the Revision A 1176 on vocals to get that low mid boost. And you should use it every time on vocals and electric guitars because that's the industry standard.
Yes, there's always a problem with guitars at 500 hertz. You should cut it as I push up my glasses. No, that's funny. We both wear glasses, but no. So be intentional. If you're going to do something, know why you're doing it. And if you're beginning and you don't know why you're doing it, that's okay. That is the point of learning. That's the point of getting better. So if somebody says something like that to you, we're not saying don't try it. We just said try new tools and experiment. So do that. But don't do the same thing every time over and over just because someone said you should and just because it's what other people have done. You know, you like develop your own style as a mixer, develop your own brand, develop your own personality, figure out what you like. And you know what? If Chris Lord-Alge uses the 1176 Revision A and you try the 1176 Revision A and you're like, this is the dopest compressor of all time, then please, by all means, go ahead, keep doing it. But do it because you think this compressor is dope and I like what it does to my sound, not I use this compressor because Chris Lord-Alge uses this compressor.
And I think one of the ways that you do that specifically is when you try compressors and stuff, you close your eyes, bypass the shit out of that compressor, and figure out, you click it so you don't know whether it's bypassed or it's active, and you try to listen for what sounds better. So even if you want to try the 1176 with the Revision A, like Chris Lord-Alge does it with his settings, what you could do is do exactly what Braden does, like bypass it a bunch so you don't know if it's actually bypassed or active, and then close your eyes and listen for when it sounds better. And you've said many times that you found out you've thought it sounded better when it was bypassed.
Yep.
And that's a form of intentionality that I'm talking about. I know a lot of new mixers, like, for example, a great example of being intentional while still learning is bypassing the compressor to figure out if it actually sounds better, or at least recognize how it's changing the sound. You might not recognize if it sounds better or not because you don't have the enough experience or enough context to know if it's going to sound better, but to be able to recognize how it's changing the audio and do that on purpose. And quite frankly, it's a lot of hard work and a lot of focus to figure this out. You're creating new neuron pathways. Like, it's not easy work, you know. But a non-intentional thing is a vocalist, a producer on YouTube told me to have minus 3 dBs of gain reduction on the compressor as my second insert in Pro Tools because that's how it's supposed to be. That is a bad example of that's an example of not being intentional. Like, you did not try, you just took the dude's word for it. And I'm going to tell you something. Here's the thing. Here's the funny thing about arguing with this stuff. People love to compare plugins. And there's there's whole YouTube channels about it, like analog versus YouTube plugin and whatever, blah, 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 blah. And I think there's a lot of knowledge that comes from the experience of comparing and trying very many different technical tools, professional tools, and figuring out which ones work best for you, which ones you like the most. But I also think there's something to be said about, I've lost my train of thought. Having the confidence to know when you disagree or when you don't like something. For example, this is not an objective craft that we do. There's no end goal with mixing or producing. It's a very subjective thing. So you know what's a very valid argument for not liking something? If you said, "Oh, my favorite plugin ever is this FabFilter Pro Q3," and I had this, and this is not true, but if I had the opinion, I was like, I don't like the Fab Pro Q3. Oh my gosh, how could you not like the FabFilter Pro Q3? It's so amazing. I'm like, you know what a valid reasoning that you can defend yourself with is? It just didn't work for me. And we have a subjective craft, so like that's a solid enough answer to like defend yourself. Like, that's a good enough reason to not like something. I couldn't get it to work for me. I just didn't like what it sounded like.
Yep.
So like there's no pressure to like anything that anybody else likes or to dislike everything that somebody else dislikes. You're allowed to formulate your own opinions, and I hope for the sake of your betterment you do. Let's say you find out you hate Procreate 3, then hate the shit out of it. Do it. and use what works better for you. That's okay. Although you are losing out, but don't use what's better for you. And I hate Isotope. I've never heard anybody say that ever on the face of this planet. Because it's not true. That's a fact. Isotope is amazing, and it's not opinion. It's fact. No, tease it. But I think that the point of this is to, as you experiment and you learn, learn different flavors, but it should instill the confidence that you need, that every mixer needs to mix better. So hopefully that was a good enough of a tangent. Did I stay on the task? Did I understand
absolutely.
the assignment?
No, I mean that's all a part of being intentional. And that's the whole point of this. And that's, the fourth thing you can learn from DK is to just be intentional, have a reason for your moves. And if you don't have a reason, try to find one, try to, and here's the thing too. If somebody says to you on YouTube or somewhere else, you should try not to have more than 3 decibels of gain reduction on your final limiter. If they say that, see if they follow it up with a reason why, or if they just say that. Because if they follow it up with a reason, then it gives you something new to learn that then you can experiment with to see if that works for you. So, that's what I've been told a lot, especially as a mastering engineer. Oh, you shouldn't have more than 1.5 decibels of gain reduction on the final limiter. And I'm like, well, in the day and age where music is loud, like that's not always practical, and for example, the other day, I think I had, and it made me physically uncomfortable because I was going against the grain, but I think I had, it was like 3.7 to 4 dB of gain reduction on my final limiter, and it sounded really good. I did not have a problem with it, which was really surprising to me because when I have pushed other songs that hard, they do crap out and they don't sound good. So again, it comes back to, figure it out, try different stuff and be intentional about what you're doing. I intentionally wanted a little more volume. I didn't necessarily want a more squashed sound, but I wanted and needed a little more volume. So I think I bumped the limiter up like 0.5 dB, and that got me obviously more gain reduction, but it got me the level I needed and didn't totally blow up the mix, which I was super stoked about. So be intentional. And I know I said there were 4, but there's actually a number 5, and that is DK is totally going to show you how to have fun as a mixing engineer. DK is a super fun guy. He's super exciting, as you all know from listening. And that's what this is all about, right? Music. We're doing what we love. We're trying to make a living doing what we love because it's fun and we enjoy the craft of it. So learn from DK how to have fun when you watch his things. And you can see, I feel like a lot of mix engineers I watch, and especially mastering engineers, they sit there all stoic as they listen to the music and they close their eyes and maybe nod their head just a little tiny bit like, that was saucy, or something like that. But DK, when he's mixing, he's in his chair, head banging, moving back and forth, yeah, this song is dope, and it's because it's fun. And that's the way music should make us feel. So, sometimes I feel like engineers are a little bit just oh, I have to sit here and think about the technical aspect of the music the whole time. But the point is to have fun with it. And DK is a perfect example of that. So watch his streams, watch his YouTube videos, and you'll see how much fun he has, honestly. And it's inspiring and it's motivating. I remember when I first started, or I shouldn't say first started mastering, but for a while I was like, I need to sit here, perfect posture. I can't move my head because it might affect the reverb time in my room and it might affect phase issues and there might be some kind of cancellation. I need to sit here like a stone to listen to this before I do any EQ moves. And then after watching DK, I was like, that is so ridiculous. So now when I hear a song that I like that's dope, I'm like, I don't care how it affects the acoustics. I'm just banging my head, so. And I'm sure
I think actually, can I expand on this point? I think this is a great one to finish on. I don't like comparisons too much between humans, but one human told me that comparing my mixes to another human, which I'm sure most other people that are listening to the podcast would recognize I'm not going to share their name, but someone that everybody would recognize. They said that my mixes, this intern said that my mixes are much more musical and the other person's mixes are much more technical. And at the end of the day, they registered and recognized as a consumer, they liked my mixes a lot more as they were more musical and emotional. I think, yeah, and I mean, there's been times where even the great Serban Ganea did a mix competition, like on a Weezer record. Serban Ganea mixed a track, and then also the original mixing, I forgot which album, which song. It's on Gearspace. You can listen to the A-B comparison. And they said that the band went with the other dude, the original mixer, even though they felt like Serban's was more technically correct, they just wanted to keep the vibe of the first one. So, interesting, right? And I do think that enjoying the craft does actually change the tone significantly. And I think that making things sound musical is a compliment, is a great thing. And sounding like what is the phrase that I've heard so many times that people like, I think it's so true, like balanced mixes suck. and there's no character, there's no vibe, there's no feel. Like, you have to be brave and let music be music for the sake of being music, and do things that are good for the song, and you have to be able to enjoy it in order to do that, and to at least perceive and recognize what you can do to make it sound something that you can enjoy. Create babies, raise children to be someone that you like, right? As we've said many in before. I love that metaphor. But I think that that's a lot more important than, I think that, I don't want to glance over this one because I think that it is important. I think that it is so important to make your mixes sound musical than it is to make them sound technical. And time again, between two engineers, the artist, the A&R, the band will often choose the one that is more musical, not the one that is more technical. So be aware, and yeah, enjoy the process.
Absolutely. And to touch on that point, I literally had that exact thing happen to me. I was in a mastering shootout with a 7-time Grammy Award-winning mastering engineer. And when the client got mine and theirs, his was definitely more technically correct. In my opinion, his drums sounded quite a bit better than mine. They were real punchy and real snappy, but for whatever reason, I feel like I was probably a lot more into the music than him. I had a lot personally invested in it because it was a song I had written with somebody and then sold to an artist. And as a result, they ended up choosing mine. And I was like, over a 7-time Grammy Award winner, like, how is that even possible? But it just, the feeling of the song came through, because and I'm not saying he didn't enjoy the process. I can't speak for him, but it was a little more of a personal project for me. So I had a little more feeling involved in it. I would like to think, which translated through to the client.
Make up your own story to make sure that you believe whatever you want to believe and get out of that story. He was probably sitting there enjoying it more than you. I'm kidding. That was a very Buddhist thing. Yeah, very Buddhist.
It's a crazy experience, but yeah. Anyway, to recap real fast before we end and let DK send us off. Number one thing you can learn from DK, and this isn't in any order, like, oh, number one's the most important. Number one, you can learn how to figure out your workflow. He has a different workflow than you probably do. You have a different workflow than Tizio. Tizio has a different workflow than Leslie Brathwaite. So figure out what works for you, and that's something you can watch DK do, and he does a great job of it. Number two, less is more, and cutting can be more beneficial than boosting. So take a look at that. Maybe try less plugins, try a little more cutting, see how that works out for you. Number three, that DK is awesome at, always try new tools. DK has the biggest plugin library I've ever seen, and he experiments with every single one of them. Number four, be intentional, do something and know why you're doing it. And number five, have fun and enjoy the process.
Wow, you did it. I used to make bullshit lists when I was recording. All of these podcast episodes are totally like impromptu, on the spot. We're like, we have no idea what we're going to say before we start saying things. If you couldn't tell already, it's pretty obvious. It's not quite narrated or scripted in any sense. You came up with the bullshit list on the spot and then was able to recap it at the end. I've only been able to do that with my bullshit lists a few times in the past.
I mean, I wrote it down, to be fair.
You wrote it down. Okay, that's cheating. There was one time I made, like, in one episode, I bullshitted like a 5-point list, and then I recalled them on my own too. I was so impressed with myself. Nobody on the show, nobody listening recognized that I talked. Like, it probably sounded really well scripted, and I had written it down.
Yeah.
No, that was totally off the dome. And Well, I thought you did the same thing. I was really impressed. But no, you wrote it down. That doesn't count.
Yeah, don't be
You're not
impressed.
as cool as I
Cool.
thought. No, just
I've got it in my notes right here. I'm reading it.
Oh, this was a scripted episode. Damn it. Oh man. No.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, thank you so much for listening. If you're interested in anything that we do, go to mixedmusicpodcast.com. I think this episode I'm going to promote. Did you know I make kids books? I make children's books. I have 3 children's, technically 4 out, but one of them is in Japanese, so 3 English children's books out. The books are about my children and about children in general. One is a lullaby. The second one is about having a new kid in the home. And 3 is about potty training. And each book is also a song, so the lyrics are also the words in the book. And you can get a free PDF download of all 3 of these books or buy them for $10 on Amazon. And all you have to do is go to mixedmusicpodcast.com/kidsbooks. KIDS books. Kids books. It'll take you to the link. So enjoy that. All right, I think that's what I want to promote this time. Otherwise, leave a 5-star review if you're listening on Apple or Spotify. Those reviews do help us a shit ton, so we're really, really grateful for anybody that's willing to do that. And on that note, happy mixing, my friends, and stay saucy.
Recording stopped.
We did it. We did it. Have you ever watched Kung Pao?
No.
Enter the Fist?
No.
It's free on YouTube. I highly recommend it.
Is it a
Anybody
movie?
in the chat ever? Yeah, it's a movie. Kung Pao Enter the Fist. Hold on.
Kung Pao chicken recipe. Enter the
No,
fist.
Kung Pao Enter the Fist. Oh,
2002.
is it not free anymore?
It says buy or rent.
Oh, it used to be free with ads.
Unlucky.
Oh, it's such a good movie. It's so stupid. I love it so much.
Also, for Mad Mapper in the chat, if you're still here, you said 3 must-have plugins. For me, number 1, FabFilter Pro Q3. Number 2, oh, this is gonna be tough. Pultec EQ, whether it's UAD or Waves, doesn't matter. A Pultec EQ, and then, well, this comes from a mastering engineer too, so I'm thinking about it purely from that standpoint. But then, last plugin is FabFilter Pro O2. That limiter is amazing.
For me, it is real simple. Your mom, your dad, your sister. No, just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm so sorry. That was so dumb.
the last thing I was expecting you to say.
I know. Also, Kung Pao Enter the Fist is probably the last movie you expected me to enjoy. It's a really good movie. Number 1, obviously, Pro Q3. And number 2, I have no clue.
You like the Cornef thing.
Oh, yeah. Well, hold on. Is it top 3 that I use, or is it top 3 that, like, let's say top 3 desert island is different list. Like,
he says
if I can
must
only
have.
use, okay, so like I have to use them. Like, if I
Yeah,
was to
yeah.
go to a different computer, I'd have the default plugins as well as 3 third-party plugins.
Yeah,
But I have to
yeah,
have
yeah.
them in order to get the sound that I like.
Yep, must have.
I would say 1, FabFilter for sure. 2, oh gosh, I have no clue. Probably the Cornef amplified instrument channel strip. And then 3, just because that one's got a lot of things, including a lot of different saturation modes in it as well. Spectre.
Oh, interesting. By
Saturation.
Waves Factory.
I might hold on. Let me think if there's a fourth one because I might interchange the Corn F channel strip with the. Hold on.
Spectre is, while DK is thinking, Spectre is super dope. By Waves Factory. Check it out. I think it's $100.
Yeah, I think the third one is gonna have to be your mom.
That's got to be our next business venture, to create a plugin that's just called Your Mom.
Hey, have you checked out your mom? Yo, I use your mom on every track.
There you.
Oh man.
That's it. That's what we're doing. I don't know what the plugin's gonna do, but we're gonna make it.
Uh.
Oh, and then someone asked API or SSL. I'm a mastering engineer, so I don't concern myself with a.
You could use a 2500 or an SSL G bus. What are you talking
about? I would probably say SSL if we're talking bus compressor. I know a lot of people really love the API though.
I only have one opinion. This is an opinion that I share with Lou. I know Universal Audio makes like more closely emulated plugins, but the API 2500 is probably the only compressor that I prefer the Waves version of.
Ah, interesting.
I have no idea why.
I was gonna say I've seen you use the Waves one, and I'm like, he has the UAD
I have
stuff.
the UAD stuff, but I prefer the Waves one oftentimes. I think it's like that mid scoopy thing that it does that I like.
Interesting.
A scoopity poop on the mids, you know. Yeah, the third. I'm still trying to think of the third plugin. Probably RComp. No, yeah, RComp. Yeah, RComp. No, because there's default compressors on every computer. Third plugin.
You're talking about Waves RComp, right?
Yeah.
I really like that.
Three
compressor.
must-have plugins from like that I couldn't mix without, or that would make me mix faster. Oh man. I'm just gonna say Decapitator because why not? I don't even use Decapitator that much, but it's just so damn flexible. Because I was also thinking like amp sims. Like if I get a really funky track and I need like something that sounds like an amp, I can like kind of emulate it with not really, but I can emulate some sort of amp sim with Decapitator. Kind of.
I guess it depends on like what category you're talking. Like, are we talking mixing, mastering, DI, compressors, EQs? That could be a fun episode. Break it all down into a bunch of different categories.
Yeah.
But
I would rather have a limiter than a compressor, though. Yeah, because most default plugins for limiters are not as good.
Now, do you like the invisible limiter from AOM better than the FabFilter Pro L2?
I've never used the FabFilter Pro L2.
Oh.
I don't have a comparative opinion. All
Is
right,
the Pro... Oh, sorry,
What?
go ahead.
No,
I was going to say, is Pro Q3 the only FabFilter plugin you have?
Oh, I have multi-bus, like the bus comp. I have the de-esser.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, those three.
Cool.
And honestly, I think I have them because someone gave me their license codes, and I think I bought Pro Q3. I know that one for sure, but the other two I'm not so sure of. Yeah, that's it. Anyway, that's it for the episode. Now I gotta edit these songs, edit these episodes, and we're gonna upload one tomorrow. I have no idea which one's gonna come out tomorrow. Actually, I do have an idea that's gonna come out tomorrow. The one that's coming out tomorrow is, if you give me a second here, is the special Q&A. Wait, yes, the special Q&A. So we recorded an event where Lou and I just did a big Q&A with a large audience. It's going to be like a 2.5 hour long special episode of the Mixed Music Podcast, all for those freaks that love to listen to us for way too long. That's going to be the special one this next week. And after that, we're going to have an interview, and then we're going to have Leslie. I think probably throw like a technical one. Probably we're going to have an interview next time, after that, and then we're probably gonna throw in the cognitive bias, probably the Leslie one after that, and then the cognitive bias one, and then Mark Abrams, who's really awesome. We were supposed to meet with Urko today, but unfortunately, Lou got the vid, and he joined the live stream chat for a minute, but Lou got the vid, unfortunately. So that's a bummer. All right. So on that note, I think that's it. Anything else you want to say, my dog?
No, it was great. I was super happy that I could help out today.
These are great episodes.
It's always fun. It's always really fun being on the show, and I always feel honored when I get to be part of the main free content. So.
All right, dude. Well, that's it. Thanks for hanging out. This was like a 3-hour stream. 2 minutes and 41 seconds. 2 hours, 41 minutes, and 10 seconds. So crazy, huh?
And we met before this for like 2 hours.
Yeah, for real. We were talking for like a couple hours before this too. Anyway, we're going to NAMM. Oh, I keep forgetting to mention that. Oh, I'm gonna mention that on this week's episode. Is when I edit this episode is us going to NAMM. If you're going to NAMM in a couple weeks, we're gonna meet in front of the Antares booth probably Friday afternoon. I'll let everybody know Friday evening, afternoon. So make sure you come through. All right, happy mix. Well, anything you want to say, Braden? I'm gonna cut us off.
No, I mean, thanks for hanging out, guys. We appreciate it, and as always, I don't know. As always, just keep going. You're doing better than you think you are.
Happy mixing, my friends, and stay saucy. Ciao.
Cool. Okay. Sounds good. We'll see you.